will set you free. Truth is love, freedom above. Find out what's below the surface they want you to know. Bring back the sunken land. We reveal the hidden hand. Free your energy with ancient technology. The future is now and we're going back. Remove the state of deception as we chart our own map. The future is now and we're going back to back up the present with the knowledge we stack. It's not the way they say. It's time that you come out to play. They don't know the way, so we've gone astray. All our effort and time and wealth was taken away. The knowledge sets free, a frequency to be. Wake up and you'll see it's not the way they say. The future is now and we're going back. Remove the state of deception as we chart our own map. The future is now and we're going back to back up the present with the knowledge we stack. It's not the way they say. It's time that you come out to play with love in your soul and freedom on your mind. The truth in your heart, birth of a new The future is now and we're going back. Remove the state of deception as we chart our own map. The future is now and we're going back to back up the present with the knowledge we stack.
Welcome, everybody. This is NEUROPA.
The future is now. That's a good one. Like it's in your head.
How are you guys? How are you, Andreas?
I'm excited because they're starting to reopen the Flight 370 search. You saw that, right?
Right, you send me something. We'll have to get into that. Yes, for sure.
Not only knows, and like apparently, the thing is real, and like Antarctica, like you saw that too. There's people in Antarctica that are trying to escape some crazy guy. There's like I saw the article, a lady sleeping with a hammer in her bra so she could protect herself against some crazy Antarctican researcher or researcher from South Africa in Antarctica. But I mean, God, it's what a wonderful time to be alive, Like we're like literally in a horror movie about South Pole.
Well, yeah, for quite some time, I think, but you were the one who mentioned that certain janitors in these areas, they like to find, let's just call contraceptives in the trash can and stuff like that, right?
Right, and then the military are bringing forward and backward giant loads of condoms. It's like literally like truckloads, but worse, boatloads of prophylactics. Because what else are you going to do down there? Certainly not do research.
I was about to say, it's like on the NASA station when you're stuck there for supposedly you're stuck there for 9 months. What were you doing? Oh, we're doing science.
Yeah, I mean, it probably is a kind of like Shriner Masonic sailor equivalent to science, or like maybe that's like the name of the sex games they're playing. But you know what? It's a good time to be alive.
Indeed. Yes. Only time is now. Well, when you like, we can just get into the things, and also, of course, we can add in. There's a few things I'll just have you talk about because I don't know enough about it. Even the recent InfoWars things going on, which is insane. But I
Yeah,
guess
it's
we
pretty
can just
wild.
start and we'll get into it one by one.
Well, I mean, we could talk about that. So Jamie White was a guy who died about 10 days ago, and I had known a bit, but I wasn't, too. I haven't talked to him in several years, but he was a InfoWars employee. It's really sad, and my love goes out to his family and all of the friends who knew him because it's just crazy. Like it's usually like the most innocent people that seem to get caught in this horrible crossfire. People that are altruistic, fight for their beliefs and things like that. But this guy wasn't like a fighter in a bad way. He was just like a researcher doing research. So I don't know how big of a conspiracy that this is. I'm just saying that Jamie died. And it's a real sad, sad story. And so what happened after that was even worse. So people like Owen Schroyer, and one of the arguably, like, he's pretty myopic and headstrong, but like he's a good guy, like I love Owen, and he went to jail for January 6th, so he puts his money where his mouth is, and you could look into him a bit more, see what you think. I like him a lot. He ended up being swatted, something that's happened to me in the past, and I think being swatted is pretty terrible. I didn't like it, and it was pretty dangerous. It happened to us multiple times. Timcast, had all these swattings happen, even to the point where after I left, it continued on for a while. Owen just got swatted. He was on the ground. He had to take off his shirt in the middle of the night. He's outside. His wife and kids are being with guns put in their face. They're going around the house because the claim was that when you do a swatting, when one does a swatting, they accuse you of doing some horrible things. So the police have to come, go through your house, tear up everything. Luckily, one of the officers, this was in Texas, so one of the officers clearly watched InfoWars, and he's like, I think I recognize this guy.
Yeah, I heard what Owen said. I saw the blip from the show. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you saw that. So, luckily he didn't get. I think that helped in some respect. And but then there were pizzas being ordered. There's not just him. Chase Geyser got swatted as well, and there's been a number of other people that were swatted. I saw that Chase put up a question mark for the FBI. He said, "Why is the FBI spying on InfoWars under a Type 3 assessment while our employees are getting murdered and swatted?" And he's like hoping that this will eventually come to some sort of a conclusion, and we'll figure out what's going on. And who only knows what's really going to happen, but it's a crazy bummer. They're not only are they swatting them afterwards, pizzas are being ordered to their houses in the name of Jamie White. So they're like warning them more and more. And it's interesting that they're using pizza as the tool to warn them. It's like some weird mafia trick with a dead fish being brought to you in the morning, like wrapped in newspaper. Tonight you'll sleep with the fishes, but weirder because it's Pizzagate stuff. It's like, that's just, I don't know. And to use Jamie's name, it's like, how dark is this world now? Granted, people are putting up websites to figure out people who own Teslas so they can blow up their cars in their homes. Domestic terrorism is at some sort of a new vogue in America. I saw that on the Daily Show with what used to be Jon Stewart, but whoever the heck this NPC is now. The Daily Show, they were talking about the blowing up of Teslas, and the audience is just cheering and laughing. And he says, "Well, apparently you guys are all into acts of domestic terrorism," and they all just go, "Woo, yeah!" So that's the new normal.
Well, how should I say, as much as I would not necessarily advise anybody to get a Tesla, starting from the potential electromagnetic impulses emanating from all
Right.
of these things and all
That's
of
the
that.
irony. I think
But
most of the people who bought Teslas are actually like leftists who still have them from when they thought Elon Musk was on their side. Like a lot of the people who have Teslas aren't the conservatives. It's like 5 years ago, I know in Dresden, there are like 5 Teslas blew up, but they're not Cybertrucks from the Republican period. They're the Model S's and things that some leftist thought would stop oil money. Ironic in Germany because they're still using oil to make the power for the Teslas there. They don't have nuclear anymore. So you're paying for Russian gas through Romania because you can't buy the Russian gas from the Russians, but they need the Russian oil. So they go to the Romanians or just other Europeans who are doing a front, and they're just like, it's like laundering, you know? That way the Germans are paying twice the value or twice the price as anyone else in the world to keep their light bulbs running. So you just turn off your lights all day.
Well, it's similar for Austria and I guess a few other countries, but in any case, it's pretty clear. And how should I say? It's always the question, you know, on to which extent is there a real opposition within government, and to what extent are they deliberately letting things happen, you know, to rile people up further. But I want to say in any somewhat Western country with, you know, telecommunications coverage and all of that, you cannot possibly tell me that these things could happen without some part of, let's call it a rogue element of the administration or whatever, collaborating with that. That is the one thing. And the other thing, you really want to tell me they don't have databases of, let's say, known hosts and popular Twitch streamers or whatever it would be, that anytime they get such a call, it first gets referenced back, and then, you know, you get a blip. AI could do that by now even, and be like, oh, this guy is very conservative or very liberal stance, whatever, this and that. So that whenever the SWAT team arrives, they would have some clue of what may be going on, and maybe some way to resolve that a lot quicker than to go through the whole spiel they have to do. It's kind of ridiculous. I'm thinking like this has to be on purpose in some way, shape, or form, or allowed to happen. You see what I'm saying?
I mean, I forget the name. It was Doge Quest is the name of the website for finding people that have Teslas. Doge Quest. So I feel like, I mean, the other thing is, it's over a period of time, things change. So you have to be more and more extreme to be against the mainstream narrative, because the mainstream narrative is becoming more and more inclusive. So at a certain point, if you want to be against the party of Abraham Lincoln that freed the slaves, you know, again, it's going to become more and more Disney inclusive as a description. Then you have to become a domestic terrorist. And that's going to be, I thought that would be harder for people. But I mean, apparently a lot of people are willing to go that mile to become the worst people they can be, because that's the way that they define themselves, as not part of this other group. I mean, it's identity politics to the greatest manipulation.
So because we've looked at Laowai 86, I think, and this whole, you know, China show being not banned, how do you say it, shadow banned or whatever, and all of that going on, what they like to talk about in regards to China, they call it not deconstruction, but they have some type of a word like, you know, deliberately destroying property. I don't know, I almost want to say due to mental illness, or due to the idea that, you know, the state and everything is bad, and then people even, you know, trash shops or trash their own place or something like that. I don't know how widespread that really is, but just this general idea also reminds me back to the protests you had in the US, which were also obviously allowed to happen, where then they were setting fires to shops and all of this. So I'm like,
riots, like
how
Compton
does
riots,
anyone possibly believe that this would benefit anyone except maybe some insurances, and put some people in danger that most likely have little to do with the actual agenda, other than having been suckered into, for example, buying a Tesla for an overpriced price and too little support or whatever. So,
well, I told you in Malibu, they literally have closed down Malibu with National Guard holding machine guns. So if you go through there, it's pretty interesting, because you have to go through National Guard with machine guns, and that's not the way people think of Malibu. It's hard to even fathom Malibu with machine guns. It feels like you're in a dystopic movie about aliens attacking, because that's the only explanation really for doing this. And you don't have police guards, again, that many places when you have riots. A lot of the point of the riots were that the police were not going to protect you, so they left. You know, and that meant it was a free-for-all. You can think of the Korean rooftop saints. The Korean rooftop saints, how they bought property in Los Angeles during the riots, and though I think it was the Watts riots and the Compton riots, and the gnarliest one, it was for the Korean rooftop saints, was when the police were beating up the guy on PCP, Rodney King, right? The Rodney King riots. So they all knew how to use guns and protect themselves, and they very quickly organized themselves into a militia, right? This is a very constitutional and essential American act, right? So they protected their building and their businesses together, and they were using radios, walkie-talkies, and they were the only ones who could keep their businesses safe because obviously no one else was going to. But you go to LA now, you go to Santa Monica, and it's this weird, freakish ghost town. First off, it's scary because you got the machine gun guy with the weird accent. He's clearly, a lot of the National Guards are like people from Venezuela and Mexico. So you're like, what's going on here? And then,
Oh, is this National Guard or is this one of the gangs? It's not so clear.
what's the difference? I mean, that's the problem is it's not as clear what the difference is anymore, particularly because who's doing the cleanup? I got this video sent to me from Superman, if he wasn't afraid of rear rocks. Here, let me actually put audio on for this one for a second, because you can hear like people are actually like, why is this happening the way it's going on? And
the reason why PCH is
you hear
closed
that?
and the people can't get in is because the feds, the state, and the city doesn't want you to see what's going on, or more specifically, what's not going on. Nothing
Right.
has been fucking done.
Nothing is getting done, possibly because the private consulting firm that Mayor Karen Bass has hired to lead disaster relief in LA is a criminal organization, literally, that has pled guilty to stealing disaster relief funds. The firm is called Haggerty Consulting. We're talking about over $500,000 in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy, stolen from people who have just lost everything. They were guilty of submitting falsified lease agreements and also expense claims for lodging and travel. And then they deleted emails and other evidence to try to conceal that fraud. I would say not exactly the ideal hire to do, quote, full project management of the recovery. Now, the question is, why did she do it? Which we can only kind of speculate about since we're not in her head. But if we take a peek into the political donations of one Haggerty Consulting, a pattern kind of emerges, specifically a partisan one. It was also reported that because Mayor Karen Bass declared a state of emergency following the fire, she has the authority to unilaterally award the contract without competitive bidding or a city council vote. Oh yeah, she's also been deleting her text messages.
Oh, the scummy lady. I really hate her. So yeah, that's been what's going on in California. And because of that, businesses can't get people to go to the business, right? Like all of these places that are in PCH, they're shut down. And so if you wanted to, like, let's say I saw a guy who his house burns down, but he also has a pizza place. That's how he's supporting himself. He's some like first generation American citizen immigrant who, loves America more than your average American does, because he really wanted to be here and not in Jordan or something like that. And his pizza place can't get anyone to visit it anymore. Same thing with so he's going to go bankrupt. Same thing with every business along the Santa Monica pier or the Venice Beach boardwalk, right? The Venice Beach boardwalk has all these t-shirt places. And, I remember going to Venice Beach in the middle of the night, any night, you'd have a bunch of people just hanging out, right? Playing guitar, being hippies, whatever, day hookers, night hookers. But now it's just a ghost town in Venice Beach. It's weird. You're like, well, this is where Arnold Schwarzenegger used to have Muscle Beach. And this is where he used to have people walking by. And this is where the Terminators invaded. Because it just has this vibe. Like, what happened here? It's all empty. And you know what else, though? All the buildings that burned down. There's random buildings that burned down in Venice. And there's electric storms and excuses. There's mudslides now. So a bunch of buildings that used to be just completely, I wouldn't say they're nice buildings, but they were historic buildings. They're gone, and they're putting up it's very clean. They're gentrifying Venice Beach really fast. Maybe that's for the best. Maybe you don't want Venice Beach to be this gnarly downtown LA on the beach experience with human trafficking and drugs anymore. And they're trying to figure out what to do about it. But you don't see as many homeless even. I think the homeless have been pushed out by the National Guard. This is an excuse to remove a lot of the people that you're used to seeing in LA. So it's really weird. It's really a weird vibe in LA right now. And I think it's kind of scary because you have no idea what's going to be next. And you certainly don't see the old way of things coming back, where people, I mean, you had a shul, you had a Hare Krishnas feeding people on the streets, you had, you know, it was a very cool place. There's a very interesting vibe in Venice Beach, and right now it's just a sort of cleaned up, empty Singapore looking thing. The streets are clean though, I gotta say. They've done some interesting stuff to LA.
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't wonder anymore. I just think it's kind of sad that always these developments, let's say, I'm thinking of Gaza now, whatever, have to be done in such an underhanded fashion. And usually, you know, regular people that probably have the least to do with those agendas, they get swept under the rug, and that would be the least of it, right? So, not to say crushed under a boot or whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. It's like, I mean, also you can't say that the damage, I mean, we're not saying things are worse than the evidence has shown, but the evidence suggests that things are worse than they're shown, right? Like careful legal language here. But when they say that they were caught stealing $500,000, for instance, okay, well, that's when they were caught. That's all I'm saying. You know, there's other things where they might not have been caught for doing other things. We ought not speculate. But it's interesting.
Yeah,
The more
I
you
can
see
only
that.
say my first thought was I would even bet that figure is much too low than what was actually sequestered in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
Because the question is, where did this money get to? What's it being actually used for? By whom? And I want to know how many small-time donors were like, oh, I really want to help the nice people on Venice Beach, you know, and now they're funding whatever Black Ops or God knows what.
Yeah. Well, I feel like they've pushed the worst people into zone. So Venice Beach is right on the edge of Santa Monica. Santa Monica paid extra money to move the soup kitchen out of Santa Monica into Venice Beach. Why? Santa Monica has its own city, has its own police force. So in Santa Monica, you know, you go immediately into the Santa Monica Mall and everything. It's $100,000 a month to rent a building. Cars can't drive down the streets. It's dystopic utopia. It looks like something out of Demolition Man with Sylvester Stallone. You go to Venice Beach, though. Venice Beach is literally the edge of LA. It's in LA County. LA police have to go from downtown LA and East LA into Venice Beach. They're not doing that, not that often, because it's like there's so much more crime going on in downtown LA. So the police aren't really doing their job enough, or they don't have the capacity to do their job in Venice Beach very easily, because also you can just run across the road there. It's like Navy Street, boom, you're into Venice Beach, into Santa Monica, back and forth. So they pushed all of the criminals that they could and the homeless people in the 90s, in the early 2000s, into Venice Beach to begin with, which was a terrible thing to do for a lot of reasons. One of them being that it destroyed the property values for a lot of people that were, you know, simple people that had these houses from the 50s. There are a lot of people that used to live in LA that weren't super celebrities, just people that worked pretty hard, you know, were sailors or fishermen, or were in the US military, you know, as like a pilot or something like that. They like somehow got a piece of property in their county. But now they also have the businesses there, and they're making it impossible for these businesses to perform. I've seen signs there that say we now accept EBT for just about every kind of fast food service, because LA's made it so you can, you know, you can essentially make it impossible for anyone to want to go to your restaurant. They're trying to destroy every little aspect of small business so that you're going to leave. And then you see, I remember seeing where the freak show used to be in Venice Beach. Now there's a giant Starbucks, right? Yeah, there's homeless druggies are placed where they want real estate prices to drop so they can snatch it up cheap. Every time, the only reason they allow it and cultivate their presence long term, billions vanish. Yeah, it's very true. That's exactly what's going on here. And then once they've done it, they put a Starbucks in. And guess, wouldn't you know it, Venice Beach has this giant, it's like the size of a grocery store. The biggest Starbucks I've seen since, you know, the Giuliani period in New York City during the broken window tax. It's crazy. And that's my sentence.
Yeah. Yeah, good one. Yeah. I'm just thinking, because a real estate usually is like this long-term idea, and you can see, oh, over long term, something is appreciating. Of course, same thing in Vienna, although here we don't have this type of issue yet. I hope we won't. Other thing it makes me think of is San Francisco with the Tenderloin. I was never actually there. I mostly hung out on which areas like Castro and Mission and Haight Street and so on, although I've been walking around the whole place. I'm not sure if I ever stumbled into the Tenderloin, but even just walking around, talking to random people, they were all like, oh, well, that's the place you don't want to go. Haight
Yeah.
Street, maybe there's some crazy hippies, but Tenderloin, you know, there's like, they're all on, you know what, like tweakers. You know? So,
Yeah, I remember being I dropped off a girlfriend who was doing some modeling in San Francisco, and I parked in, you know, just like the place I thought I could park, which was the Tenderloin. I was like, I'll probably be okay because I'm in my car. It's the middle of the day, right? And then some homeless guy comes up to my car and starts trying to get into my locked door. And I'm looking at him like, dude, really? And he's like, just won't stop trying to pull on my door so we can get into my car. Like, I had to like turn on my car and drive off with some guy like trying to pull my door open. Tenderloin can be pretty crazy, for sure.
I have no idea what that means, but greetings to you, Manifestopheles.
Indeed. Hey, guys.
All right, yeah, if you like, we can get into it. There's a few things
Yeah.
overlapping. Let's see how far we get today. Yeah, so someone early in chat already recognized where the screenshot is from, but there is a little bit more to it, because when I saw this, there is a black Sapphire casino in Cyberpunk 2077 in the expansion. And it's also the nicest building. If you like free clip around the map, you can see it's like huge and all of that. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, we'll just look at it and then you guys can tell me if this reference, which I'm imagining is correct, as to why it's called the Black Sapphire. You got the link, Andreas? I put it in the private chat.
I was pulling it up. So, guys, go to Comency.at and you can go down the page to our log. And then everything
all in the
that
description.
Right here.
All the show links and the support links and Andreas's channels, all in the description always.
So Black Sapphire Casino is the name of today's episode, as Raf said. And we can start with, you want to start with Kabbalah and Islam video?
Yeah, maybe just show that it's just a minute. It's a short, maybe okay, with sound if possible.
Yeah, let's get that going here. 1 second.
And the thing is, there is no other building that is valued so much in the world than that Muslim Kaaba. It's a cornerstone. Now, soon people will see masonry is trying to understand it, copy it, duplicate it, and is trying to compete against it. But Islam is the purest form that practices the way of God, or what we know as the Kaaba of Allah, or they face the direction of God, or the Kib Allah. And the compass makes it a circle, and that's why they have the cube, yes, or the book.
Yeah. A square in the middle. I draw a circle around it, and then I have the movement of the people around the Kaaba, basically.
Yes, it's nothing difficult. Even children in mosques understand these concepts, but they don't realize that the opposition to them, masonry and everybody else, the rest of the world wants to take over this system. Now, this system is the most advanced form of masonry or machinery of God.
Crazy.
So actually, this is the one, and there's one more short, if you guys go on my channel, basically just about the cornerstone of the Kaaba. So in the Kaaba, right on one corner, you have something, and that pretty much looks like this black sapphire logo, basically. Let me see.
I also wanted to show you on the Orange County
nice.
part of the highway. There's the Kids Discovery Cube, which I drove by this and I thought, my God, what is the giant Kaaba here doing? And it has neon lights at night, so it's a big outline cube with the corner being brighter than the other. And at the corner is an ancient dinosaur world, basically, that's coming out of the ground. So I don't know. The Kaaba,
at least from this perspective, it even looks as if it may actually have the Kaaba dimensions, because it's not perfectly square, is it? It looks a little elongated.
I think it's basically the same as the Kaaba stone, which is the same dimensions as the the Apple Steve Jobs' Next cube is right as well.
GameCube. So just everyone can see, here's the cover again, and you can see on the casino board, basically you have this black stone within the square, right? And I'm pretty sure it's a reference. And also, what I didn't know for the longest time, even words like ruby stone, that's also a name like or different names, they all refer to this, stone inside the Kaaba, or at the corner of the Kaaba, basically.
Yeah, so it seems kind of interesting, and they definitely want kids to go inside of the Kaaba. and normalize it in the West. Hooray. Space rocks. Okay, so then the next thing was Voidzilla. Voidzilla is talking, CoffeeZilla is talking about Enron. No, he's just wearing an Enron shirt. Is this a pump and dump about crypto? Or,
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
So what I found curious here, let's see if I didn't mark a particular point. I think that's, yeah, it's coming up a little bit later. So, Musk and Rogan are talking about crypto scams, I guess, or whoever else they're talking to. And we've mentioned this before, that there were even coins associated with the Trump family, at least with, official endorsements, which have been nothing but rug pulls. And again, maybe I shouldn't be too surprised, because on the one hand, what you heard about Trump, or what I could read online, obviously I don't know the guy, is that, yeah, he's such a great guy, he's such a great employer, he's so nice. But on the other hand, what you have more and more comments coming up is like, yeah, he's so nice and he's so wealthy because he's basically not paying half his contractors and doesn't care if whoever is getting bankrupt, as long as he can pull through his projects with a profit or whatever his motives are exactly. And what we're going to get to a few links down is Patrick Bet-David, who I've also brought up before. Now more and more people are coming to terms with it, that this guy basically, built a multi-level marketing scheme, selling or recruiting people into life insurance. And in this way, I'm always almost wondering again, like, are really just the most loudest people with the most questionable, let's just call it, business models rising to the top? And then Trump is like, oh, I almost don't want to say it, but what I want to say now is, oh, I recognize myself in you. I also don't care about whoever's being left below, whoever I'm profiting off, whoever is being in some way, shape, or form scammed into losing his money or something. And then they all congregate at the top and eat at Mar-a-Lago or something. So it's, yeah. But yeah, how is this legal? You're muted, Andreas.
Oh, I'm just still looking at it and trying to remember exactly what CoffeeZilla was looking at. But I mean, let's see, Melania coin, coin market cap. Looks like it's 73 cents. Wasn't it as high as $15? Yeah. So, but that was only the first day. So, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, this has happened many times before to many other coins, so you can't necessarily say, oh, it's the one thing where people got rug pulled or scammed. But what I do find interesting, and I saw this great meme sometime back somewhere, where they were like, oh, crypto bros in 2017, and with this anime was like, yes, mining, utility coins, and I don't know what else, hold it, and this and that. And then you have crypto bros in 2025, with these strange looking caricatures I cannot possibly recreate, where it's like meme coins. It doesn't say that, but like rug pulls and all of that, where at least in 2017, even though you had many ICOs and projects that didn't go anywhere, certainly some even may have been set up as a scam, but at the very least, they were doing their best to portray a use case. Some actually had one. They tried to be innovative. They tried to provide utility or function or something new, something interesting, something superior. And now there's this huge marketplace, I forgot the name and I wouldn't recommend it, where people are literally just sniping meme coins all day. And that's like a thing to do now, where I'm like, wow, so this is what investing has devolved to. That's almost like the big time financial markets for certain areas, right?
So there's always insider trading where you get the coin first and you pump and you dump. But there's also, I don't know what's going on with Dome. Someone just said, check out the Dome coin, and it's risen, 10,000% or something like, whoa, that's crazy. But a lot of the time what you can do is you can go to a coin that sucks, let's say Trump coin or Melania coin, and you can figure out in a day, especially the lower the coin value, the more money you can put into it. So if it has a slight growth.
But this is relevant because Dome coin is, if that's correct, this is the coin set up by Dave Weiss.
Oh, yeah?
This is the Dome shot.
Is this the same one? Shot. This might be a different one, though. I'm not sure if this is
okay.
The same
I'm just looking at the chart. Okay, no, it's a different one. All right, but okay. And that's the other issue. I heard that on these platforms you can literally set up a new meme coin in like 10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, wow.
pump and dump. So, but the other thing is you can get into a coin that's look at all-time high was way higher, right? And now it's down super low, but in a day it rises and falls. So if you can get it low and then rise it, and you put $100,000 into the coin at like, you know, what is this 0.000000596. If you put it, I mean, you can buy a lot of coin, and all of a sudden it rises 130% or 1,000% or something like that, and you sell it. You can make a lot of money. One could make a lot of money off of this coin another way than just insider trading. With the as soon as the coin launches and you pump and dump, you can actually find a coin that looks like it's failing, but then in a day it has some volatility, and they're riding volatility. If you have a lot of money, you can make a lot more money because you can invest it in this basically penny stock kind of. I wouldn't quite call it a scam, but that's, I think, what's going on for a lot of people is they know exactly how to ride
Well,
these.
the
These
issue,
meme coins.
although, remains, because even though you can do that, first of all, who has 100K lying around, they can freely
Well,
invest.
the elite. It's
And
the elite that are doing
yeah.
this. Yeah.
And the other thing is, what is, of course, in the stock market or in buying and selling, technically you would probably almost always have somebody losing out, as long as it's this type of, you know, security and all of that, or stocks. However, the difference for me still is, and even though I wouldn't necessarily recommend anyone investing there either, but if it were something like, let's say, even Tesla, bad example, General Electric, or, you know, wouldn't invest in any of these companies, but at the very least you could say, well, they're producing something real. They're actually doing something. They have an operation, and technically within a year, depending on their profit margin, all of that, they would have a dividend and all of these things. But you don't have any of that with a meme coin. It literally lives on the meme, on the brand itself, and whatever PR stunts they can do. Again, not necessarily so different from some big stocks either, but here it's like they're not even pretending that it has any value to society at all, except a quick rich scheme for the 0.001%.
Right. Exactly. They're just trying to. That's the thing. Yeah. I wanted to show this because someone's talking about Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto. You know, the conspiracy that Jack Dorsey from Twitter was, at very least, very, very close to the center with Satoshi Nakamoto. So, I mean, whatever that means, if the NSA did this and he was involved with the NSA, one of the 1,300 original cypherpunks in '96, confirmed code in all these languages, posted 2003 that he's ending dependence on the US dollar, refers to himself as Jack, like the wallet pseudonym. As a sailor, he says, around the horn and again, for that's the sailor's way. And then the next day, Bitcoin.org was registered. The original Bitcoin source code had the adage, never go to sea with two chronometers, always take one or three. So all of these references that he's made, at very least, he's been really, really close to the center of Bitcoin since the beginning. Jack Dorsey calls Bitcoin an amazing movement in September 2012 and said the Square would accept it, becomes obsessed with taking Bitcoin into Square. And Lex Friedman asks Jack if he's Satoshi in 2020, to which Jack tells him he wouldn't admit it if he was. This is in contrast to Nick Szabo, Adam Back, Hal Finney, all saying explicitly that they're not Satoshi. He wouldn't tell you if he was. So 145 very old Bitcoin addresses were signed a message stating that Craig Wright was not Satoshi and he was a liar and a fraud. The oldest Bitcoin address that signed the message started with one Jack, Jack's old pseudonym, and with the oldest that signed it contained HISQ in the middle. SQ is a ticker for his company Square. And Jack always parades himself around in a Satoshi shirt. Who knows? But I think it's a pretty interesting idea that Jack Dorsey is at very least really, really close to the center of whatever the Bitcoin crypto conspiracy, if you want to call it that, was.
Yeah, what is better, owning X? Supposedly, I mean, there's all this investor list, right? They disclosed last year with some interesting names, or being one of the first individuals to be in on the Bitcoin thing. Although, yeah, I'm pretty sure they also have to be in all kinds of certain clubs. I'm not sure how free you are if you're one of those individuals.
Right. I think the Powerful Friday broadcast video got taken down. I don't think we can. I don't know. Let me see here. Yeah, video unavailable. So
Oh, really?
we'll have to look around for the Odyssey version of
That's
that.
fine.
Alex Jones.
Basically,
Yeah.
this I was only pulling this up because I was like, "Whoa, is this serious? Like Alex Jones is back on YouTube. How did that even happen?" And I was expecting your input on that. That's all I wanted to point out with that. But we already covered some of the more recent things now.
Mhm. I don't think
Yeah.
Alex Jones has his own channel on YouTube. I think what's going on is people upload his videos. Is that right?
Oh, okay. I don't know, but the thing is, it got really big and it got recommended in my feed. So at the
Mhm.
very least, YouTube is not or at least initially wasn't flagging it or something, and it was over 100K views when I saw it,
Right.
I believe.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed that if you try to do a recent search on anything made within a week, basically doesn't show up in your algorithm when you search for something. YouTube's made it so it takes a while before they let your video get out into the algorithm to be found by people generally. And by that point, once it hits 100,000 or something, that's when they have to put someone on whether or not that video should be in the algorithm. And then they'll critically analyze it. So they don't do that work necessarily for the billions of videos that come out every day. They wait until it gets to a point where it's going to be seen. Otherwise, they just keep doing everything they can to bury it. But you might have known someone who saw something that was connected to that channel. I think that's the best thing that we can do. I mean, if you make new channels and you upload Alex Jones videos, if that's what you want to do, I mean, it's not hurting anybody except for YouTube. And I hope you do it. Anyway, this is Did Anonymous Just Take Down Twitter from Some Ordinary Gamers? Not my favorite YouTuber, but you know what? What's he got to say about this?
Yeah, I just pulled it up because I find it, I'm not sure, either hilarious or worrying that individuals are still treating Anonymous as some independent something. I saw one meme with like a timeline where it was like, 2007, oh, Anonymous may be interesting or whatever, even though I was always suspicious of them, because if you remember the original Anonymous movies that were put out or whatever, where they had the big PR push, and I think this was even in regular mainstream news, so makes me question it thrice. But at the very end, don't they always say, "We are Legion"? And I'm not, a Bible thumper or anything, but that would basically be a reference to some sort of, let's just say, not exactly Jesus aligned, to stay in that term, reference. And then just now, that none of them, or I'm not sure to what extent they even discussed the idea that Anonymous, because it would be anonymous, could be any agency, could be any group whatsoever. Yeah, but I think we were even trying to stream during that time when X was down for a day. Do you know anything further about this? What may have happened there or not, or actually happened? Because this new anonymous group, which again could be anyone, I believe they claimed that they at least took down X in some particular countries because some were online apparently. I guess they also have a somewhat decentralized system, but in many places you couldn't access anything for like a day or two. You muted.
Sorry, I noticed that there was some DDoS attack, and Elon Musk had talked about how basically every day there's some DDoS attacks, but this was still a massive cyber attack against X. We would get attacked every day, but this was done with a lot of resources at a large or coordinated group, and or a country is involved. Tracing. So, I mean, clearly, who do you think has the tools to do this, and why would they care? Obviously, the people that are upset the most at Twitter are the former legacy government, the legacy administration, which have power.
What
they
do you
know how to
mean?
use
You
it
mean
still.
Clinton and Bush, or who are you talking about?
Yeah, the Obama administration and the Bush cartel. Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I feel like the Bush cartel is kind of retiring. I'm not sure exactly, but they seem to have figured out that they're better off just going to Paraguay and relaxing. But the Obama administration and everything around that includes a lot of deep state actors from Washington D.C., just your average agents. There's a lot of people there that are pretty upset about what's going on, and they're the ones who know how to use a lot of these tools. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's what's going on. I don't see Iran doing this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean,
So,
one hand, one pocket, other hand, other pocket, so.
mhm. Yeah. Technocrat superstar and eco warrior Mark Carney takes to the helm of Canada.
Yeah, so here I haven't gone deep into this yet. I just find it hilarious once again. Who was this guy before? He was the governor of the national bank. Well, that must be the most trustworthy individual you want to have.
Yeah, it's got that climate action eye on the top of their pyramid. So with the number 13, 7, 8, and 9. Because 6 was afraid of 7 because 7, 8, 9. But
Yeah, so I mean, if they're already that far, I don't see any problem for Canada not becoming the whatever 53rd state, or what would it be? So
yeah, I think Canada has to get one, They're not, it's a population thing. Yeah, they're a big old state, but they get one. That's the way we're going to do it. Or we could just like carve it up and give it to other states or something. I don't know. That'd be pretty funny. Canada, there was that South Park Canada protest.
Yeah.
Did you see the episode where Canada's on strike? This was supposed to be about the writer's strike, but it really South Park. It really was pretty interesting because they were both the writer's strike and the truckers' strike in Canada kind of combined together. The episode really makes more sense now because it's about how Canada feels disrespected. So they go on a strike, as in they stop working, and nobody cares because it doesn't affect us at all. And then Canada starts to starve to death. And so then they just have to kind of pretend that they won. They just need someone to make some sort of concession so that they can feel like respectable people. And it doesn't work. And they just go back to work, basically. I feel like it's pretty poignant right now. Canada on strike is happening. They're too polite for their protests. I mean, remember the trucker protest, man? How polite was it to like lock up truckers' bank accounts and anybody who donated in Canada to supporting these truckers? I mean, I don't know how polite Canadians are anymore. I know some pretty polite persons, but in government, no, the government seems pretty authoritarian and kind of cray, Their beady little eyes. So let's see here. Also, Hal Sparks Morning Mega Wide.
Are you familiar with this guy?
I'm trying to remember who Hal Sparks is. Who's Hal
So
Sparks?
if you
again?
zoom in, you shouldn't see his name. He's apparently like a comedian and so
Oh
on.
God, yeah, of course. This
And
freaking guy. I remember him from the Disney Channel.
Oh my God. Okay, because I was just surprised because it somehow came up in my feed and I was like, okay, this guy seems to be saying a few somewhat interesting things. He has quite a lot of
Really?
live viewers. Well, but then at the same time, if you watch him, so I don't know, I guess he would be potentially have some valid points in criticizing
He looks
Trump,
like
for
a
example.
pirate gypsy, But okay.
However, then in the next sentence, he's also saying things like, oh, basically put more money and weapons into Ukraine and all of that, where I'm like, yeah,
He
sure.
was Zoltan. He was Zoltan in Dudes, Where's My Car? He's also in that scene in Spider-Man where he's like in an elevator with Spider-Man. It's like a famous meme where it's like, there it is right there. They're like in an elevator together and he's like just this guy, in the elevator with him and he sees him right there. Like, yeah, whatever. What else? He's in Extract and Fuller House. Yeah, he's in some weird stuff, like he's definitely tapped into a strange crowd of people. It has this kind of vibe,
And I think it even said somewhere he's like confirmed to be high-level Mason, which does not need necessarily to mean one thing or another, but at least means you're connected to some things, right? So I was just surprised to see this guy come up on my feed. Initially, I was like, okay, maybe interesting, but so many live viewers. How do people know him? Why do people listen to him?
He was in that
What's
show
going
Queer
on
as Folk.
here?
Everyone in 2000 was like, please no more. But there was this show called Queer as Folk, right, on Showtime. It's a terrible show. It's all about being gay in the year 2000. Yeah, and like how hard it was to be gay or something like that. Queer as Folk. Yeah, like fine, whatever. But I just remember him especially from like some weird ninja show for kids on the Disney Channel. Yeah, gay Mason. Okay, for sure. What's up, Bikini Truther? But sorry, I want to go back then because Hal Sparks said what now? He basically was saying that there's some inconsistencies in Trump's policies.
No, it just seemed like, yeah, there were a few things where I was like, okay, he has a point here. Maybe he's somewhat interesting to listen to potentially. But then I listened a bit more and I was like, oh, wow.
Oh my God, his hair.
He has all kinds
Jesus.
of very strange views at the very same time. Yeah, so basically my main point was, because only later I realized he's an actor actually. I was like, oh, how can someone who also appears to talk about interesting things have such high reach on YouTube? What's going on here? And then I realized, okay, he has got some talking points that at least I certainly don't agree with, and that seem very half-baked in my view. And then I realized, oh, he's an actor, you know, he's got these connections, so that's why he's getting recommended in the YouTube feed, basically.
And you've seen evidence he's a Freemason too? I mean, like, it is whatever, but like you
No,
saw
I think
this.
I think this is even like public
Bro,
information.
look how big his tongue is. What? I mean, just, I don't know. He's just a weird guy to me with the giant tongue. Why I became a Freemason answered. Oh,
Yeah, maybe let's see this for a second. Give me 1 minute, I'll be right back.
he talks about how he became a Freemason. I'm lucky to be surrounded by good men trying to make themselves better, and to all the haters or conspiracy theorists or nutcases out there. Eddie, bravo. I love you, but you're wrong. You're wrong on so many fronts about this. Don't be a fool and understand that without the Freemasons, there is no America, okay? Oh my God. All right. Okay. I mean, hey, we got Freemasons on our show all the time. We're happy with Freemasons. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm just saying that's kind of funny, right? That this guy, Ben Franklin, was a Mason. He encouraged Lafayette, who was a Freemason, to join our fight against the British, and the tenets of democracy within Freemasonry as far how officers are democratically elected, which is why the theocrats and monarchs hate it, why the Catholic Church hated it for a long time. It's why monarchs and tyrants all over the world make it illegal. Think of every authoritarian government that you despise because of they don't allow for the freedoms that you appreciate as an American. Wow, this guy. And understand that they have outlawed Freemasonry. There's a reason for that. Wow. Okay, so this guy, dang, bro. Dude, we're not just trying to I mean, hey, you know what? Like, he can be gay. He can be a Freemason at the same time, obviously. But it's just interesting that he's this Disney character that's pushing Freemasonry. What's up, Eugenie? Oh, I miss you, bro. Good to see you. Yeah. So did you know that? Did you know that Hal Sparks, that freaking Queer as Folk actor, was a Freemason? Because I didn't. But I mean, it makes sense. I just didn't really. This is funny because it's like asking if you knew he was gay, but Freemason. Like, I love where we're at with this country. It's crazy.
Well, I just stumbled into that because, like I said, initially I just saw him. 1,000 live viewers, seemed to say some interesting things. He's streaming every day, and only later I realized, oh, he's an actor, and oh, he's a Freemason, oh, this and that. But I love how he's portraying that. Basically, didn't you know? And I'm not saying that this could not be true to a very, very certain extent. But basically, he's portraying Freemasons as the, how should I say, rebellion against the status quo or something like that, if I get that
Dude, my
right.
grandfather was
Rebellion
one. I was
against
always curious, he says.
against authoritarian governments, which, I mean, in official history, they do say that, for example, in Germany in the 40s, they were banned, and I think they were also banned in quite a few other authoritarian governments.
Yeah, I mean,
So
the Jews weren't the reason why the Nazis got in trouble, Like, I mean, Hitler was on Time magazine. It was when he took the Freemason lodges in their libraries that all of a sudden everyone was like, "Oh, we gotta do something now." That was basically very suspicious. I like that he's saying, though, this is hilarious. He's like, my grandfather was a Freemason. I was always interested in it. My dad didn't join because his whole generation thought it was square. But when you know that the compass is square, it makes sense. So he's literally saying that the squares, that's why people call them square, because it was anti-Masonic rhetoric to call somebody a square. This guy is on another. That's another level. I never even thought. Now it's defamation to call people squares because it's anti-Masonic. Ah! Based. Wow. Okay. All right.
That's great. So we learned something. So on the next video, basically, if we can, I would like to play maybe just 1 minute on 2 hours and 32 minutes, because So this is about Wozniak, Trump, DeVos, but basically it's about Patrick Bet-David. The video is called Evolution of a Scammer. Basically, again, by now people know, explaining how he built an MLM and all of that. Oh, what's that?
Apparently, Hal Sparks invented the Z hand gesture, this Z-shaped hand gesture, which comes
Oh, I'm
from
sure.
his character in the movie Dude, Where's My Car? Zoltan, Zoltan, right? And I think everyone needs to rewatch Dude, Where's My Car? Because that's a weirdly deep movie. It's like these two dumb kids lose their car, but it's because of like space-time aliens from Germany that are taking over the world. Crazy. Okay, sorry. So now you want to go to Patrick Bet, you said?
Yeah, so generally, I mean, he's not like going into all the rabbit holes, but this guy does a good job in like explaining MLMs and yeah, what's going on. Also, even from what I know, MLMs have a pretty high standing in America ever since, you know, with Amway, and there's all these cross connections with Robert
Yeah.
Kiyosaki, you know, Poor Dad, Rich Dad, and all of that. And what I always love is when you look at these motivational speakers, that runs some sort of a scheme where, as I explained earlier, even potentially with Trump, you know, maybe not paying some contractors and all of that. So basically being more than willing to throw people under the bus below you just in order for your own wealth and fame to grow. So he's doing a good job explaining quite a lot of that. And here he's going over Patrick Bet-David. It's actually kind of a funny video to watch. I remember watching the whole of it because you can see his old videos and like basically how he built up the things he's doing. And for some people, I almost want to, he would love if that were done. I wouldn't, but compare him to Tate in the sense that maybe you could argue some of the talking points he has have some validity to them and could help someone, but then you have this whole thing built around it, or whatever his statement is built on top of, that is more than questionable. And here he's basically going through, you know, these events. If anyone knows MLMs or anything related, I almost want to say politics, exactly, MLM.
It's funny, I was just trying to explain to somebody what MLMs were the other day because they weren't familiar with pyramid schemes yet. And there was just, it's interesting. I think
well, please
so many people
be exact, Andreas. In the US, it is perfectly legal.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. There may be different legal cases.
Are you guys
whether
not
or
allowed to do it where you're at?
No. We are, of course. But
Okay.
there's maybe a question of whether or not you're allowed to call certain MLMs a pyramid scheme or not. But anyways, this Patrick Bet-David built his fortune on it. But I wanted to bring up one particular statement at 2 hours and 32 minutes, which I found quite interesting in that
people
video.
call a pyramid scheme like the fraudulent version of an MLM. I think it's pretty much the same, unless you, I guess you're not supposed to say that. But what do you mean when you say an MLM? It's multi-level. Well, how, what shape is this multi-level marketing scheme where you've got someone at the top and you've got people that are buying things below and they're selling things to people below that? Yeah, I think it's definitely shaped like, it's not shaped like a circle, you know, something about, and a lot of the time it's like women who are, their husbands didn't want them to have jobs. They were like, you can go sell
Yeah, I mean,
cosmetics for Nova, right?
one thing that's kind of hilarious here is that Patrick Bet-David now is basically super pro-Trump, and he was pro-Tate. And see, M was the gold son of MLM, and calling a pyramid scheme could be considered slander. See, here we go. So we're not calling it
all I
that.
know, I've had some friends whose parents were in the Amway, and you know, I'm not going to call it a scheme. I'm going to call it a cult. How about that? But you go ahead and call it whatever you want to call Amway.
So, but anyways, that actually in these older videos, you see Patrick Bet-David literally saying, yes, and we're expanding into like the Hispanic community and all of those diverse communities. He now doesn't seem to maybe agree with so much anymore. I mean, there's always differentiation, you know, who is, especially in the US, who is considered an accepted or desired immigrant and who isn't, all of that. But of course, in the end, what you're doing, especially because there he was selling life insurance, which is something quite particular, I would say. And the only way to move up into the system or move up the ranks is, of course, recruiting more and more people, not only as agents that they would sell life insurance, but basically everyone who wants to join has to close a life insurance for themselves. And that's, you know, how this whole goes. You have, of course, the income statements, which clearly show that, you know, I don't want to lie now, but huge swath of the people participating, if anything, they lose money overall. And of course, only very, very, very few, even less than in any regular company, of course, actually earn any money. Because in a regular company, at least at the end of the month, you have a clear paycheck for sure. And with these systems, you have startup costs, you have recurring fees, all of that. Yeah, but anyways, what I wanted to bring up in that video is at 2 hours and 32 minutes, because I think there was an interesting statement there. I'm curious what you're going to say about this. 32 minutes.
Okay, 1 second here. Let me get the audio going here.
Google, a Google CEO, any system that came up with share
2 hours
is
and 32
system
minutes,
or
right?
business networking, shaking hands, but it's not going to explode your business. He said exponential growth is at the top. Leadership development or innovative campaigns. For example, like Coke came up with share a Coke with John. I'm not a Coke drinker, but I'm buying the Coke to share it with John. One great innovative campaign for us when I came back to our business to the next level.
It's truly amazing to hear this from someone whose business is literally a multi-level marketing scheme. It's no coincidence, I think, that he hones in on this networking element that he learned at this event that he went to. Oh yeah, share a Coke with John. I don't drink Coke, but does this even make any sense to anyone? Has anyone ever shared a Coke with John? Has anyone ever gone, I don't like Coke, but I'll buy it so I can share it with John? Nobody has ever thought that. Nobody has ever thought that. But of course, he's using that to try to draw a parallel between his company and Coca-Cola, which is a legitimate company, so that he can be like, see, networking is the most important. Leadership, networking. I'm a network marketing company. We build leaders. You should reach out to people on Facebook. Hey, girl, do you want to make some money? It's like, oh my God. Share a Coke with John. Share the opportunity with John. Come over here, PHP, make some money. Recruit 5 people who recruit 5 people. Become a senior marketing director. Recruit 5 more people. Now you got 25,000 people. Simple money, baby.
Okay, so I think this was, unfortunately, actually, for some reason, maybe I put down the wrong timestamp or something. This is also an interesting idea. But basically, at some point, maybe he's bringing it up as well, the whole question about, there was some discussion, maybe this was even a discussion with Musk, I want to say with Musk, and maybe this was related to the earlier thing about how is this legal with the crypto rug pulls.
Gene's right. He didn't mean Coca-Cola. He meant like a bump of Coke. That would be the only way that you'd share a Coke with John.
But anyway, I overheard one conversation online where they were talking about health insurance, I believe. And someone like comparing it like, oh, isn't that, or social security, and isn't that like equally a scam? And of course, on the front end, this would cause great uproar because, oh, social security, it's so great and it's so amazing and so on. But from everything that I understand, unless maybe you're investing with very particular private funds or whatever, where you know the owner and you know the markets and you know what your friends overseas are going to do in advance who are big investors, I'm not sure how many people actually ever really paid into social security or health insurance and related things, aside from the fact that we talked about 2/3 of individual bankruptcies in the US are medical bill related. But anyways, people pay in over decades, whether it's in the US, in Europe or whatever, and who really ever got out of the system an equal amount or appropriate amount of what they put in. Anything I ever hear is people paying loads of taxes, and then at the very end, when it comes to receiving their pension, they more or less still receive minimal pension, or maybe a tiny bit more than what you would have for minimal pension. So I'm basically wondering whether this statement, not sure if scam is the right word, but let's just say it's a type of investment that even just due to inflation greatly depreciates over the decades. And today I'm honestly wondering oh, now there's the audio. Now we have the audio.
I was trying to find just the scene from King of the Hill, because there's like a great episode where she wants to be rich and move to a nice neighborhood, and she finds some aggressive pyramid scheme lady who tries to get her involved in pyramid schemes. There's a number of these episodes in King of the Hill where they talk about different issues that happen to poor, innocent, naive people in the middle of the country who don't know any better and are just trying to work hard. So, well, if you work hard and you know people that work hard, if you're a good person and you know other good people, you might be dumb enough that we can exploit you. And that's basically what a lot of these things do. Now, maybe it's not fair to say that about Amway because Amway has products that.
I was just
nothing
wondering,
wrong
were you
with
just talking
it.
about Social Security right now?
Oh boy, fair.
So that's the whole point I wanted to make. Yeah, thank you for summarizing it.
Oy vey. All right, fair enough. Yeah, pyramid schemes, pretty much. Okay, so world order, maybe.
Yes.
Okay, so let's see. Zelensky, Abramovich, Venus, CCG. Let's start with that. So Zelensky tapped spirit cooking artist Maria Abramovich, who cut pentagrams into her stomach, as new ambassador for Ukraine schools. Cool.
This was already
What?
apparently 1.5 years ago, but I was like, I can't even say anything about it, to be
I
honest.
mean, yeah, it's like how fitting. C'est la vie. Yeah, that's exactly what you'd expect. to
Because
happen.
even if I want to have a popular artist or something like that, wouldn't at least I choose someone whose art is naturally appealing to the eye? I mean, I know
It
ever
depends
since
on
the
how
last.
Slavic you are, and Hungarians technically aren't Slavs. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, this is. I would do this as a joke. I think this is hilarious, kind of.
Yeah, of course. If this was like a satire site, I would be like, oh, that's a great one. But like this, and knowing the history of Ukraine, knowing
God.
the
Yeah, what they do to
all of
kids
those
and
things we talked
bloodletting.
about it, and
Yeah.
that it's, I think, one of the only countries, if I remember this correctly, where you can legally adopt a child, but in a way that the fact that it is adopted and the original mother or father will not show up in the system again ever anymore. It's like one of the only places where you have these like special arrangements possible, and there's many more dark things there which I don't even want to get into now. But I was just like, yeah, literally, like you said, is this a joke or what is this?
I mean, yeah, taking care. I mean, granted, I think some things have changed in Ukraine in terms of same-sex adoptions or transgender parenting. You're not supposed to transgender your adopted kids or something like that. I think they had some rules about that more recently, but things are changing. Yeah, and I hear you, Ziga, low-hanging fruit, because you can talk to David Plate about this. He thinks that she's basically messing with the elite because she knows what they're into, and so she's doing this art to kind of make fun of them to some extent. I don't know how far you go with that either direction. It seems pretty interesting that someone who does spirit cooking for kids, I mean, like, would be in the Ukrainian education department, especially after Zelensky's been putting people through human sacrificing basically for the last several years. And yeah, I mean, how many people in Israel aren't even Jewish because they were brought to Israel from the Ukraine in the 90s and the early 2000s? A lot more than you might think. Some weird stuff going on with the disappearing of people.
Russian Jews, Ukrainian Jews.
Yeah, sure, but not all of them are Jewish. That's the irony.
Well, you said that just now, but not all of them. Yes, not all of them.
That's the correct number to bring up on a show like this. Oh, it's okay. Spirit cooking.
Yeah,
And here's Maria Abramovich being
nothing to dwell on. Just one thing I want to bring up again is that she literally, if you scroll down to her awards, I think it should even be listed there.
I'm not allowed to say anything negative about this person because she's Serbian, and I feel like I have a bias and I have to pretend to be open-minded even. All right, let's see. Awards. Award. There we go. Awards. Golden Lion. Which one? The Austrian Decoration for Science Art.
Yes, yes.
That sticks out.
I think I had brought that up before at some point, and I God knows how she got that.
Probably because who had to die? I'm just kidding. But am I though? Am I kidding? You don't know.
So I'm like, this, even just knowing this does not make me, not that I would ever be eligible, but this does not make me want my national decorations anymore. If I know this is the type of peer group that you're
more eligible than Maria Abramovich.
Well, if it were a system based on,
this is probably a good list.
I don't know what.
We're gonna have to go through a list of these people who got the award. I bet you they're all Freemasons, like this Zoltan Hal Sparks guy. Okay, and then wow, Venus the Dancer.
Yeah, so this was brought to my attention by David Beebe, who is, I am pretty sure, knows Chinese and is often bringing up interesting points. Also recently, when we spoke about briefly the Korean and Chinese and how they may be similar or not and all of that. And here just pointed out, because recently on a David Ewing Jr. interview, we spoke about the idea that apparently even somewhere in Pakistan or whoever else, they literally have programs which is like basically climate change, and they call it gender studies, but you could also say climate change and gender change outreach program or something, somewhere in the desert or somewhere in Africa or whatever. And apparently, I guess it's somewhere relates back to the UN. This is just my guess now. I haven't looked too deeply into it, but what doesn't relate back to the UN? Basically, you go to countries which would have little to nothing to do with this idea of changing your gender or whatever else. You put up these charity supposed programs, and then you funnel certain individuals, which in my mind at least may even just accept, you know, maybe they don't have the most straightest sexuality or whatever. I wouldn't speculate on that. But of course, it makes you prone to slide into that ideology if you can see, oh, well, if I agree to that, if I change my gender and everything, then I become someone important, or at the very least, I can leave this country, which I'm in, which maybe is not developmentally on the highest rung of the ladder if we speak of Africa or certain other places. And I just find this extremely crazy. And, you know, instead of helping people to have water supply and be able to start small businesses and whatever else, you educate them about climate change and, yeah, women's rights, maybe that's what they say, but ultimately also related to gender change. And apparently she was one of the first, like, transgender or whatever, in this case from China, that got high up in that whole level, as you can see her here on the World Economic Forum even. So
Her
yeah, that's
debut
one.
film was in Resurrection of the Little Match Girl. Crazy. Korean
So that's
movie.
one way you can move up in the system. Just, you know, change your gender or get your child to change your gender and then start, I don't know, dancing at the World Economic Forum or whatever is going on exactly. So
She was censored for criticizing Vladimir Putin in 2022. Interesting. She's adopted 3 children. At the age of 33, Jin adopted a son and then 2 other children she raised by herself until her marriage in 2005. She married her German husband, Heinz Gerd Oitmann, in 2005. She currently lives with her husband and children in Shanghai. Crazy. Recognized as one of the BBC's top 100 women in 2017. Interesting.
there you go.
Wow. Why are men so much better at being women than women? Pick it up, women. Come on. All right. CCG Trader. These are some of my favorite cards. Oh, there's like a whole list of them all too, eh?
Exactly. Cool. So, because finally, again and again, I was searching for certain cards or something, and you usually only find these very pixelated, super tiny images. But here, if I saw this correctly, you may actually have the whole list in an acceptable resolution.
Yeah.
Not only
a
of
watermark, but yeah.
Right. Although I heard people are now starting to use the newest Google LLM to remove watermarks from images. That was like a random message I saw somewhere. So, you know.
Nice.
But yeah, I think here you have the whole list, and maybe at some point we should even go through them one by one. I just wanted to put it into the link list so anyone who's ever interested in it, here you can see, I think, all of the cards of the original 1995 set or whatever it was by Steve Jackson Games. And yeah, many things already have come and gone that are captured in these cards.
The California card is so funny. California, all your media groups have +1 power.
Yeah.
Adorable. All right, daylight savings time. Something that kills more people than most. I don't know if I'm going to go there, but you know what I was thinking about.
Yeah, I think we're through it by now, but if you scroll down, I wasn't even aware of this. I think only when we're doing many shows with Jim for Team Rabbit Hole, and I'm sure we also stumbled over it at some point. There is a great site called worldtimebody.com. If anybody ever needs to synchronize over different countries, you can go there exactly, and you can put in exactly where you are, and they keep the proper timing even if there's daylight savings. But going back to that wiki page, did you know, I mean, how insane is that daylight savings time, first of all, that it even still exists? The official story they gave us in Europe about it was, oh, it's to save energy in the afternoon or the morning or whatever, so we adjusted 1 hour so we use less power for electrical lights or something, if you can believe that. I mean, as long as the pipeline to Russia is open, I doubt we would ever have issues with with energy prices, but it's supposedly a remnant from like the post-war time or something like that. But the crazy thing here is, as you can see, they literally, or Palestine even gets a special slot, they literally put different countries to switch the time on different dates.
Yeah.
I'm like, how much more insane can this get? It's crazy enough that you have this at all. But then if you have it, at least synchronize the change to one day, one time all over the world. So everyone knows, okay, after that day, I have a new time relation to other countries or whatever. But no, they like space it out over whatever time period. Just it's like, wow. I'm sure there's some jobs created by having this. It's insane.
It's completely insane. Daylight savings time needs to be stopped. It's like one of the most dangerous things. People literally
And
have
funny
health
thing
effects,
is, this
right?
is one of the few, also, yeah. And of course, children having to go to school too early is not good for teenagers' metabolism and all of that, and circadian rhythm, and no one cares about that. I wanted to say something else.
Yeah,
which
studies have
just-
found an uptick in heart attacks and strokes right after the March time change. It's crazy, right? Daylight savings time switch literally kills people. We gotta stop this. It completely screws up your
Right.
biorhythms.
So I believe there was like some referendum or survey or whatever within the European Union about whether or not to abolish daylight savings time. This was one of the few things that supposedly got through with like over 80-90% approval. And I think this was even somehow citizen involved or whatever. But don't worry, they didn't change anything so far, you know? So this is the state of our democracy today. You're muted, Andreas.
I was just reading the Fleur-de-Lis Royal Taurus.
Yeah, this is just a random video I found, which may be interesting. People can just look at it themselves, showing different images and how prevalent this is. As you've explained recently, and I finally have to remember, it's also related to the bee. But basically here just showing how many patterns in nature this actually occurs. It's just a random short video I found with some interesting symbolism people may want to check out.
Very cool. Hidden meaning to the symbol. The symbols of the ancient Greeks are an archaeological record. Literally emerged in Egypt and Babylon before its development in France. Very interesting. Related to the Nautilus and the shell. Yeah, we'll have to check this out more. All right, so that's the world order. Let's get to Österreich, the Easturia, the Austrian Media.
Yeah, just before we skip over that, we can look. Actually, we may even want to play it because I think it's the nicest preview intro we've done so far. On this one, play the first 2 minutes basically. We can just listen to David for a second, and anyone who wants, they can check out the video on my channel. I think it's some interesting information.
In this episode, we will look at the basics of the European Masonic Muslims who built America before many Europeans went to live there, and the truth about the future Messiah king known as Moshiach to the Jewish people, or the Caliph to the Muslims, or he is known as the King of the World or the King of the New World Order. Yes, we will also look at the question of where is the true Torah of the prophet Moses, and will the true Torah of the prophet Moses be revealed by the Messiah, Moshiach, or the Caliph, or the King of the New World Order? And who is the Moshiach or Messiah, King of the New World Order? We will also look at the question of the Antichrist, known as the Dajjal to the Muslims, and where did these stories or these hadith actually come from, and are they true or false? Or are many of them actually true, and did they come from Europe? Yes, the story is going to be made simple in this video. We will also look at the symbol of the star and the moon, which is found on the Turkish flag or the Islamic flag. Is it really an Islamic symbol, or does it hold the secret of ancient Northern European history? For example, many people don't know that it was actually a flag that was used in places like Belgium and Holland. And also in this video, we will look at the 7 laws of the Prophet Noah, which are also known as the Noahide laws, and why many people want to bring this into the New World Order. Also, we will look at the history of the Islamic Masonic Ottomans of Pakistan, who they are, and why does nobody know about it. But the biggest thing that we're going to look at, yes, is the European Masonic Muslims, who are Northern Europeans, white people, who built America before many Europeans went to live there. Who are these European Masonic Muslims, and why does nobody know about them?
Yes.
At the same time. Right, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so
More-
just a basic idea that, you know, you have these huge parades with the so-called Shriners in the early 1900s, and supposedly most of this was put underground whenever the TV started, and actually a little bit later we'll manage to get through to that point. We'll see how this may relate. So basically the concept of, could it be that at the top there actually is quite different groups fighting, which David has oftentimes alluded to. And what we see in the public sphere, of course, is just the drama and the stage play for the public, but may have little to do overtly with what actually happens behind the scenes. And one of the groups heavily involved here, of course, Shriners is known to be a Freemasonic group. They also may have changed over the years, but I can just recommend everyone to check out that video, and even just check out the original videos where you see these huge, huge parades of Shriner Masons, basically. And yeah, it certainly at least looks like they own the place. And according to David, it may well be that they substantially contributed to build the place. And this also relates back to this one comment I had on a video some time ago, which I had brought up about Whittier Castle, where a commenter wrote and said, yeah, he asked an older guy in his village, like, what's going on here? And also he said, yeah, it was the Moors who built that castle, and then it was demolished and here and there. But yeah, so who actually built America, and when was America truly constructed in the way we know it today? And how accurate are the founding father and Civil War stories that we have about America? Are they truly accurate, or was there something else going on? So these are the questions I have, and David is basically hinting at the idea that at the top there is, which is partially explained in this video, one group that actually is interested in furthering human development and general welfare, let's say, and another group that is only interested in bringing about the next, world king, let's say. And the real fight in the back end is about who is going to be allowed, which family is going to be allowed, which power block is going to be allowed to issue that, dare I say, Moshiach. But that this is also a recurring theme in every generation, where these background families are vying for control or vying for the possibility to supply that Moshiach. But so far, at least in the last 150 years or whatever, it doesn't seem that they could agree on anything. But yeah, you see interesting parades there, and what you even see, someone in the comments already picked up on it, they literally show this, and this is from, I guess, 1920 or something, an Aurora Borealis machine, you know? Get to think of it. Is that a real phenomenon, or is that just another, lights in the sky thing for people to shell out money for expensive trips to see it? So, yeah.
Word. And so let me show you the next link here is blocked. So CBD, THC, Compt Nash, we would like to show you that video, but the video is unavailable because the account is no longer associated with YouTube. It's been terminated.
That's very strange. So that was simply a follow-up video on the legal situation in Austria, because we had also spoken about this, why did they suddenly forbid all the regular CBD stores from selling it? And this was just a German news channel. I'm wondering why they were, like, independent news channel. I'm wondering why his account would be terminated. I have no clue, to be honest. They didn't seem to be very contentious or anything like that. But he had just given an interesting summary about the legal situation, and that it may well be that if they would legalize it in Austria, that most likely the tobacco monopoly, along with the, how do you call them, tobacco stores, basically, would snatch up the business, and most likely it would be them then who are allowed to sell it.
But this
Oh,
guy, is this video?
yes.
Okay, so this is another re-upload of it from CIA TV. Okay. We'll
Yeah,
subscribe
it's
to
probably
this
his
channel.
second channel or something, but very strange. Yeah, that's the video.
Crazy. Do you want me to show any part of this or just kind of
No,
point
it's
it
fine.
out?
I was summarizing it basically just to anyone who's interested. How does the legal situation progress in Austria? That's the situation, and it's of course kind of hilarious because in Germany it's more or less legalized now, and in Austria they are playing around, but it very much looks like that they want to make sure that whatever their preferred clientele of the tobacco shops or whoever will then get to make that business if regular THC will also become legal in Austria. So, yeah.
Right. And right now it's legal as decoration only, which is pretty funny. So you go into a shop and they'll sell you a plant for decoration. Well, that's an interesting
In
loophole.
Germany?
In Austria, not in Germany. I don't think in Germany has that law yet.
Right. So here, this is just continuing the saga. We don't need to go too deeply into this, where I had mentioned that a very important individual from the Interior Ministry died about 2 years ago. And now it seems to come out more and more that there were all kinds of super strange procedural errors and all of that on the scene. This woman actually was his girlfriend at that time. And there is even a tape recording. The guy's called Pilnacek. So he was like a, how would you say? He was not a political appointee, but maybe similar, you could say, in certain ways, what you have in the US with the senior executive service. We don't really have that in Austria, but basically just a very high level, how do you call it? Not official, but if you're like working for the Department of Defense, for example, you're not a political appointee, but you are like a, what's the proper name for it? In German, you call it a Beamter. So you're like one of the workers there, right? But you're basically head of a certain department. And in this tape,
but
and in this tape that was released, because he was often accused of helping particular political parties to stop certain investigations because he had an important position in the Interior Ministry. But there is a tape where he even says, yeah, they were asking me to intervene here and there, but you know, I can't do that. That's not legal. That's not proper. So even though in the media circus he was portrayed as the evil henchman, it may actually have been that he had quite, or at least some ethical and legal standards in his own mind, and maybe wasn't always conforming to what was being asked of him. And there was this very strange night then when he was driving one way, then another way. He acted very strangely to everyone around him. But then at the crime scene, because he was in the water, and legally, if anyone is found in the water, you always have to order an autopsy and you have to do all kinds of things. But the police that arrived from certain particular places in the country basically told the doctor who was attending, oh, no, don't worry, we don't need that. The doctor was then insisting on some kind of procedure, although the police themselves would have had to do that because the police handbook literally says you find anybody in the water, you need to follow these and these steps. But all of that went completely out of the window. And the next day, after all of that happened, you had the former Chancellor of Austria, Sebastian Kurz, publicly stating, oh, I'm so depressed and I'm so sad about that he's dead now. And or basically what he said is, I'm so depressed that he suicided himself. So already the former chancellor knew exactly what happened, even though the proper police procedure weren't even being followed. And now you have this guy here interviewing the actual witnesses in the case. And you have to imagine, we have a president of the parliament up to, he was like a few months ago, and he was there for many years, also during the lockdown period. And you literally had the wife of the president of the Austrian parliament talking to her and basically telling her, yeah, don't worry about the phone which this administrator had, just give the phone to me. And eventually some other ex-girlfriend of his, who is the head of a court in Graz, which is like a smaller capital city in one of the counties, they were literally, if I understand correctly, burning the phone with like a, not a flamethrower, but what's like the small version of a flamethrower, you know, stuff like that. So basically, if you would have any legal understanding whatsoever, which even she has, because I guess she's also worked in the administration, she told everyone, well, I don't want to have anything to do with this, or to do this or that is illegal. But you literally had the wife of the Austrian parliament president basically approaching her and trying to rope her in to, I don't know, make sure that evidence vanishes and to make sure that no one is reporting on this in a too blatant fashion. But yeah, it's crazy. So
All right. Well, everybody check this one out. Zach channel right here, and then this is for. Let me translate to English. Allgemeine information. I don't want to try to translate. Oh, there's a button there I can push probably to English. Did it just take it away? Or no? It doesn't want me to translate this page. It doesn't like me.
that's crazy. So what this is, I'm not sure if you have anything similar in the US. I brought this up before. Maybe on the top you want to go back one image actually. They have this slider image on the top, just so I can read it. There where it's moving. You can see it moving. So the statements there is, I'm part of it because independence is important for me. And the other one said something like, I am part of this because I want my children to know more than the fake news on the internet. And what kind of site is this? This is the site by the Austrian state broadcasting company, where basically they set up a new system. And now instead of having people come to your home and asking you, oh, do you have a TV? Do you have a radio? If you do, you're expected to pay like, $20 a month or $200 a year. Now what they did with the new law is basically say everyone who has a domicile at all is forced to pay for this. While at the same time, especially during the lockdown period, the viewership for the Austrian state broadcasting channel has gone downhill, almost like jumping off a cliff. But they have no shame whatsoever in putting up new campaigns and forcing everyone to pay. There will be some legal repercussions now, or let's say some legal proceedings, even with the highest courts in Austria, because we have some lawyers that went onto the case and they're kind of like, this kind of looks illegal to me. Let's check with the higher courts. But yeah, this is how they do it in Austria. They literally force you, aside from all the taxes and everything, they force you to shell out $200 a year to be propagandized, which could be fine if people at least would want to watch this, but no one wants to watch it and everyone is forced to pay. So that's amazing.
I wish I could find the example right now, but they're basically arresting people in England, right? Isn't that the deal? Who don't pay their television taxes?
It would be similar in Austria with the system, the way it's set up right now. Yeah.
Yeah, the Labour Party is considering broadening the BBC license fee to include households which only watch streaming platforms. That way, everyone's forced to pay for the BBC. And if you're, not paying for a stream, they know exactly who has a TV in which house, and they're going to start giving people tickets and arresting people who are watching shows that they're not supposed to watch. Things are getting pretty crazy. BBC will increase BBC tax by 6.6%. from April 1st.
Again, these numbers. And although I have to wonder also here, it seems to be such a low-hanging fruit, but they love to keep harping on that issue. And I almost want to say, because they would know, the government of any country, UK or Austria, they know they don't have a majority that would support this at all. They don't even have probably 30% that would support it. Maybe they would have 10% that would support it. But still, they deliberately go on with this, maybe just to rile up people or something. I'm not exactly sure, because also you cannot tell me that they wouldn't find a different way to extract 200 euros extra from the general population. They wouldn't need to set up a system like that. But still, they deliberately choose to do it, maybe just to annoy the public. I don't exactly know what the larger game plan here is.
Yeah, I wanted to find the ad I saw on the subway, but there was like a subway like warning. It's like, we know exactly who has a TV in which house. We have a map of each person, and we know exactly who in this neighborhood has a TV, and we know who's not paying for it. So if you think that you're going to get away with using a VPN, just be careful in Britain, because it's not like a civilized place, so be careful. ORF.
Oh yeah, and this is just a joke to add on to it. So ORF is the Austrian State Broadcasting Company. This is just some regular, political discussion. But the point being that while they now force everyone to pay for this, and the new government also, they take some money away from pensioners by increasing the pensioners, imagine that, social security contribution. So all kinds of ways to subtract and take money from the general population, while at the same time, again, promising millions to some foreign countries, I think even like Ukraine and all of that. But here, even just within the Austrian Broadcasting Service, they want to build a new lodge. Lodge, maybe that's a keyword.
Yeah, like even the CBS eye looking. Oh, I mean, like my God.
Yeah.
They want to build
a
like two
lodge for the, how do you call it, the doorman, the portier, the guy who's at the entrance.
Yeah.
And don't worry, I mean, he has a lodge and everything would be fine, but it's better to have a new one, and that only costs 8 million euros. So that's kind of the expenses they want to make. I mean, I hope at the very least they actually sequester the money and, I don't know, buy some extra bunker or whatever they need. But this is just completely ridiculous. And again, I'm wondering if they almost do this deliberately just to get people upset and have something to talk about and divert from other issues. But just as an aside, so they force everyone with a domicile to pay for it. No one wants to watch it. And then they buy or they renovate their buildings for millions and millions with things that nobody even needs. So
totally on the up and up, not
amazing
at all. Right.
Exactly. Not a pyramid scheme. Yeah.
Scientists for the future, though. Look at these guys.
This is great. And maybe this, I think, somehow cross relates to the whole USA thing. I'm not sure if in Austria they are also threatening to remove funding. I mean, yes, they did. They actually did like restructure some types of funding. I don't know for whom or in what areas exactly, but it's somewhat hilarious because here you have, of course, not self-interested at all, the scientists and researchers of Austria going to the street, and basically they don't even say anything interesting in these interviews, but they're just saying, yes, science is so important for everyone. You need to support the science, and these guys probably work in some lab or whatever. I cannot vouch for what percentage of those individuals actually are necessary or actually truly provide anything that eventually has benefit for the general public. I just found it kind of hilarious that, they're basically complaining that maybe their funding is getting cut. Although I would have to question, of course, especially considering the last few years, which one of those scientists spoke up and did actual science or whatever. I'd be hard-pressed probably to find a significant percentage of those individuals marching there, but that is only my assumption. No way to prove
scientist. That. Yeah, right. Interesting. And Dear Vietnam.
Okay, so this is great. Maybe put on CC, pause it.
Yeah, go on. Let me restart where we were at properly.
So there is not, pause it and put it on English, please.
Oh, yeah.
So there is a reason why I'm putting this up. This is one of the few interesting and well-made Austrian series that are comedic, you could say, or satire, as they like to say. We have a few decent actors in Austria, and here, exactly, this is the right place to start. So basically, you may even leave on the music or the audio and just play it from there for like 2 minutes. And I think this is actually, of course, supposed to be satire, but from my understanding, this may be more correct than even maybe the actors themselves are realizing. Also, because I recently heard this, or some time ago, that already in the 90s or early 2000s, and probably it was similar before and after, there's literally 4 individuals that meet each year in New York City. That's the information from back then. And they more or less decide the global media agenda. So here what you have is a fun story where a guy is recounting his experience, like a young guy who just got hired from school. This is what happens before there, because he had a good school newspaper. And then some strange guy is approaching him and is like, oh, well, you still want to write after getting your, not bachelor's degree, but basically your high school diploma? Would you be maybe interested and so on? And the young guy is like, okay, well, maybe. All right, let's check it out. And then they arrive in this cafe where they meet. And then the old guy who's recruiting him is bringing him into the back room. So maybe from here on, let's play 2 minutes and hopefully it's understandable, the point I want to get across.
Oh, very Curb Your Enthusiasm.
1945 war der österreichische Journalismus
1945
praktisch
Austrian journalism was
wenn man so
practically
will,
over. If you like,
Die
the
Juden und die
Jews and the
Linken waren weg.
leftists were gone.
Die bei den
Those who
Nazis
were
was
with
waren,
the
haben
Nazis
noch nicht wieder
were
dürfen.
not allowed back.
Also haben die Amish die
So
Sache
the
in die Hand genommen
Americans
und haben
took
geschaut,
control.
dass
They
wir in
looked
dem
to
Land
ensure
wieder
that we
eine
got an
unabhängige
independent
Presse
press in the
kriegen.
country again.
So,
A
Denksportaufgabe,
mental
wenn keiner
exercise
da
if
war.
no one was
Wer
there.
hat dann das alles geschrieben?
Who wrote all of
Antwort.
this? The answer
Ui.
is just
Entschuldigung,
me.
ich verstehe jetzt nicht
I
ganz.
don't quite
Was haben
understand
Sie geschrieben?
what they
Ja,
wrote.
die unabhängigen
The
Zeitungen.
independent
So
newspapers.
basically, the guy says he
Alle
wrote
Türen.
all the new
Alles.
independent newspapers. And
Yeah,
now you
which is me.
can zoom in a little bit, just a little bit, or just go by 5 seconds, and then you see him going to the office. And basically, the old guy here, he's recounting it. This is also funny. Just 1 second, because here he's recounting it. This is like 2 scenes.
In die Hände gefallen. Ich wollte ihn
Ja,
natürlich nicht
stop.
reizen, also habe ich zu ihm gesagt, Sie schreiben alle österreichischen Zeitungen ganz alleine?
You'll pause it here.
Faszinierend.
So who he's talking to is basically the main anchor of the evening Austrian news by the name of Armin Wolf. This is 20 years ago. So by then he was still younger. The guy you see on the right-hand side, you don't properly see his face. But this guy obviously, how should I say? Let's just say he's part of the state broadcasting system, right? And the young guy you see sitting there across of him, where you see his face, he's like recounting his story and kind of trying to whistleblow. Look what happened to me, you know? I'm here talking to you from the Austrian Broadcasting Company, and I'm trying to whistleblow this story to you that all the supposedly independent Austrian newspapers after 1945 were run by the same individual. Isn't that a crazy story, right? And then he goes on explaining it. You can just skip forward a little bit just so we see some of the scenes. Now the scene is switching back, yeah.
The Americans are gone. Nobody was really interested in changing anything in the press system. Good. So this is how the Americans were gone. He took it over and just kept doing his job, running for all of the newspapers. Originally, it was only a temporary solution, but it settled in well, and that's why I continued with it, which has continued up to this day. Well, look, I'll show you what will be in the newspaper tomorrow. And he just shows he's got his little computer there and he's writing,
Yeah.
what's going to
So
be
he's
there
basically
tomorrow.
just explaining to him, look, we just choose a random headline, and he's choosing something so generic like, oh, Chancellor says we will progress properly, or the local governor says the government finally has to do something and improve the working conditions, or whatever generic BS basically.
Right.
And then he's going through the next newspaper and it's like, look, here we can choose a nice image. Oh, we haven't had this type of article in a long time. Let's choose this. Yeah. And then this guy gets introduced to 2 more guys that are also, they of course then they have like other newspapers they are running. And it's funny for Austria because these are all real newspapers, right?
Yeah.
And just saying, yeah. And then the old guy says, yeah, we have a second and a third in command here. And allowed them to play along a little bit and make their new magazines or whatever else. And the 3 individuals shown here actually directly relate to real media personalities that exist in Austria today.
And then
So
the
it's
guy
kind
with
of-
him is like, how do you make sure it's up to date? And he's like, well, that's kind of the crowning glory of this, in my opinion, because nobody demands that the Bible be up to date, So why should the newspapers be up to date? We can just really put something in the sort of current aesthetic like it's up to date, but it could just be the same crap all the time over and over again. In fact, that's better because that's what people expect, right? And if it's something that deviates from what's been there before, it would be too shocking to even take seriously. Like you're way better off just keeping people in the same loop of nonsense. Here, we'll put a picture of the minister with a puppy,
Exactly. So yeah, I think a lot of, how should I say, even though it will, of course, it's not exactly like that, although by today with all the AI
Kinda
tools they
though.
use, I wonder how many individuals they really need to run all of these newspapers.
Yeah, with Grok now, you can easily get anybody's face in any sort of picture. So, it's so much easier now you wouldn't even have to take photos of the people anymore. I remember with Alice Vidal from the AFD, we could just make pictures of her tumbling down the rabbit hole like Alice in Wonderland. She doesn't even have to be there for the photo shoot anymore. Politics are going to be so much more streamlined with AI. It's incredible. Progress. pretty exciting. Okay, so yeah, make sure you watch Der Wirtmann. This looks like a pretty funny show.
And there is also another interesting correlation to this, at least in my understanding, because there is I think maybe even a movie called Der dritte Mann, so the third man, and this one is called The Fourth Man. Here it's called The Fourth Man because the young guy is being recruited to be the fourth of these, background media controllers. But the third man actually relates to the idea of the Vienna underground, because there was some kind of popular movie, Der dritte Mann, about the underground in Vienna. And the very first episode of this satirical show actually starts in a bunker. So the very first episode actually is an episode underground in a bunker, where they then, have a fake nuclear alarm or even a real nuclear alarm or something like that. So the series starts in the bunker, and they have quite a few other, satirical ideas about Austria. If anybody for any reason is interested in Austria, you can check out that series. It has quite a few interesting episodes.
The Third Man is a very important historic film that you should all look at. All shot in Vienna. All places we've hung out, which is pretty funny too. Basically everything in this movie are places that still exist. There's like a filming locations list for every scene, and you could actually just do a tour around Vienna. It's like, oh, this is where they shot where Harry Lime lived. It's great. So The Third Man, worth checking out. Okay, and then this is Anno Historische Zeitung und Zeit.
Yes. So anybody who likes to do historical research or just document research, I always like to point out the Austrian National Library. Of course, you have this probably for your own state if you're in the US, for your own country, most likely. A lot of things are digitized. According to David Ewing Jr., it may well be that quite a few of these actually are backdated, because he's even stated this publicly. He knows through his families individuals that ran printing businesses, and they apparently, even historically, basically have been asked, well, don't you want to print this or that to further whatever agenda, however it is explained explicitly or not. But of course, the big question here is, the farther we go back, linotype, the modern way to print newspapers, was only invented in the late 1800s. However, you have quite many newspapers that supposedly had circulations of thousands upon thousands that are supposed to have been printed prior to that, which of course raises the question, were they really printed back then? This would also relate to like Civil War newspapers in the US and all of that, or were a lot of those simply backdated to make up a plausible story for the modern nation states? I, of course, tend to believe the latter rather than the former. But in any case, anybody who wants to know the official digitized versions of newspapers in Austria, you can check out these pages.
I mean, yeah, definitely things changed a lot with Xerox machines and the sort of duplexing machines. I saw how newspapers were done in the late 90s and early 2000s in places like Louisiana. And there were technology that goes back to the 60s and 70s. But the amount of work it would take to typeset your newspapers like a book is a lot of work. You definitely have to expect that would have taken more time, and you would have had a lot more people having to work for the newspapers for sure to do each article. They would have to typeset everyone themselves. So you can wonder about that all you want. And then here's the
and this is just one I wanted to point out, because this is supposedly an Esperanto magazine, if you can believe that. I mean, who in 1938 was able to read Esperanto? I mean, maybe if you know some Spanish and English, you can get a grip on what's being said there. But I just found that very interesting, because Esperanto also very much appears to be a, how should I say, particular type of operation.
Yeah, it's very strange. The William Shatner movie, he made like at least 2 or 3 movies in Esperanto. So I have to wonder about the UN's goal to create this new language. And we should probably do an even bigger deep dive into Esperanto. Created in 1887.
And with the star?
Yeah. Green. How Islam can you get? I mean, it makes sense when you realize that they were teaching everyone languages in 1890s, 1900s. Like Italy
Yeah.
90% of Italy couldn't speak Italian, right? Austria wasn't speaking just one version of German. The entirety of Europe
Many would
had to
argue
be
even
taught
today,
the languages.
many Austrians don't speak the same version of German, even
Yeah,
between different
word.
counties.
So, but it was even more distinct at a point where you couldn't understand anybody at all in Italy. There's like 30 or 40 languages that were being spoken into the 1960s. So teaching someone one language versus teaching them another language, there was a push to have a universal language just because there really wasn't a national language for every country yet. There were people pushing for this idea, but it just didn't really exist. Rose Island used Esperanto as their official language in 1968. Right? So,
Oh, wow.
the Republic of the Roses. Rosicrucians. Okay. So then Hans Dieschend.
Yes. So just following up with the whole newspaper idea, this may be some story to look more into at some point. It even states here that basically this guy was in the war and then working, I believe, for the British broadcasting in Austria, because you have to imagine, it's even hard for me to imagine, but there is some snippets still available of this. If I understand correctly, from like 1945 to maybe 1955 or something, Austria didn't have its own state broadcasting company. But basically you had like a French radio station, a British radio station, maybe an American one. Who else? There should be a Russian one. And they were all basically, all the allies had their own propaganda for the Austrian population. It's kind of crazy for me to imagine. And one of the guys who, dare I say, collaborated with them was Hans Dieschend. And don't you know, he turned basically out to be the media czar in Austria for decades and decades, running the most popular newspaper, where worldwide he was being envied for the, dare I say, well, they say circulation, I was about to say penetration of the newspaper in terms of viewership. Like, it had insane numbers for a very long time. It's basically like a boulevard gazette, very simple. And even political parties were afraid of this guy because they knew, well, if he's going to run a campaign for or against us, this may make or break a new political movement, a new political idea. This may make or break several percentage of the votes and truly may sway public opinion, or may have people become interested in doing a certain referendum or not doing a referendum and all of that. So from initially working, I believe, with the British, but it should say in that article, he acceded to be one of the media czars in Austria. So that's one of these interesting stories, maybe somewhat similar to the Fellner, who I had mentioned before, Helmut, what's his name? I believe Wolfgang Fellner. And even in what we saw earlier with Der Vierte Mann, this satirical show, it seems that these three individuals that are shown there, that are already working there, they actually may be modeled after real world individuals. So the oldest one you have seen already, we saw, would have been Hans Dieschend, like this would have been his role. Then one of the younger ones would have been Wolfgang Fellner, and maybe another one, I forgot, Oskar Bronner, I believe. Oskar Bronner is also running a newspaper for a long time, even though nobody's reading that newspaper really. Super leftist, called Der Standard, the Standard. But yeah, that's how it relates back to this satirical show, because the individuals shown there literally relate to real media czars that existed in Austria or still exist.
It's interesting. Hans Dieschend denied having been part of the Nazi Party. In 2006, the 85-year-old powerful newspaper publisher learned during an interview that the German Wikipedia had assigned his biography article to the category of Nestab member. He angrily exclaimed, "I have never even come close to Nestab. I even managed to avoid compulsory membership in the Hitler's Youth."
Which
So,
I truly want to know, how'd you manage that?
that's my real question. It's actually way weirder, because everyone was forced to do it. He literally just called it compulsory. So tell us about that. What do you mean you were able to avoid that? Well, also he was, in 18 years old, volunteered for the Kriegsmarine. What's the Kriegsmarine again? I mean, okay, maybe you could just say it was the imperial, like just okay, whatever, bro.
So yeah, these media stars, of course, purely based on meritocracy, I'm sure, and merit and the desire to inform the population of what's really going on.
What a
So
service
what
that
we
they're
have.
doing, you know? List of stations owned and operated by Sinclair Broadcast Group. Wow.
So I'm not sure if they reach into Europe as well. They are mainly known to be in the US. And why I brought up that list is because
Oh
I'm
my
sure
God.
you've seen the next video, which is the video about this is extremely dangerous to our democracy. I think it's even on YouTube. Yeah.
All right, let's get the audio going for this one because it's kind of fun. Hopefully we'll be allowed to play it.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities, the El Paso, Las Cruces communities, Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about troubling and irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda.
Obey.
And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
I remember showing this to some ultra leftists, and they're like, "What? So you're saying that people can't have a unified message?" It's like,
wow,
so bad, dude.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Is that like your safe word, you fetishists? Like,
this is extremely dangerous to our democracy. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
I like how each one of them has a different take. You know what I mean?
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Oh yeah, put your hand on your heart and your stomach.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Yeah, bro.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Yes,
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Yes, sir.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Oh my God. Did you see the one so recently? This one was the one that happened.
When I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
22 Democrat senators all doing the exact same thing. Crazy. Obey. Rubble. That's just not giving me a headache. I'm sorry. I don't know if I can finish that one.
Yeah, even here, I'm honestly wondering with both of these instances if that is not also part of some higher level controlled demolition, because by today, except maybe for their real core audience of maybe 20% of the population that don't ever see anything else, do they really believe people won't get hip to it, put together these compilations?
There really are people that are for this and are like, well, that's a good thing. They're all working together and they're all saying something that's true. So of course it's going to sound the same because what they're
but
saying
I'm sorry, even in the most basic college courses I took or whatever, they ask you, or not even college, high school, whatever, primary school, literally, don't they always say, put it into your own words? That's something I always heard. I'm not sure if you ever heard that, but I'm
depends.
like, they don't even have enough acting skills or creativity or whatever to rewrite the blip they have a little bit so it's not just verbatim exactly the same thing.
I mean,
wow.
I think they're trying to make the point that it's all, you get soundbite memorization is more powerful. If you have everyone saying the same thing, then they're all saying the same thing. It's more powerful. And they might tell you to put things in your own words, but that's a lot of work for the teacher to review. It's easier if you just put it in quotations and cite your sources. That way they can use an algorithm to make sure you did the right thing. Just for example here, like I've got my uncle constantly posting, things about what it's like. They're like, oh, having been a student and a teacher, I'm appalled that Trump is taking a wrecking ball to the Department of Education. Like, these are the kinds of things you're seeing every day. Darren posted this one, which was hilarious. Like, remember a few years ago when the MAGA Republicans were lighting the Teslas on fire because I don't remember that either. I don't know what like he's basically saying that Republicans were doing this first. And I don't recall, I remember Republicans making fun of Teslas. Sure. Yeah. They're like, ha ha ha, you're buying a generator to power your electric car with gasoline in your generator. Ha ha ha. I don't remember them lighting them on fire. But this is they took a meme about Democrats doing it, painted the shirt red, literally, and just put like, she still got blue hair. You know what I mean? Like, this meme doesn't track. It's just this is really where we're at. There are people that literally believe this stuff. I'm just saying, like, okay, all right, you get my point. So now we're on to
so much for your local news media channel and newspaper and everything being completely independent, based on original research and with the highest standards of integrity, ethics, and the investigative spirit. So just to make that
obey. Ah! That's what it feels like all day, every day. Anyway, remembering Cyrus A. Parsa, we're on to a new subject now. We just got into the None Dare Call It section right here. So None Dare Call It. And this is the first one, remembering Cyrus A. Parsa, the dangers of AI and smart bioweapons.
Here I'm just wondering, had you heard about this Cyrus A. Parsa? Because he supposedly, he died. People speculate as to how or why. And he was talking about it. I have to say, I did listen to some interviews. I'm not sure if I can even completely recount his point now. But yeah, we just wanted to ask if you're familiar with Cyrus Parsa.
I don't remember. I think I've seen a couple things he's done, but it's been a while. And I think I might have seen him have a conversation even with Age of Truth. But I'm not sure exactly.
Okay, so just maybe something interesting to revisit. We have brought out the information by Sabrina Wallace, Sci Energy, and others related to related things. Dear YouTube. But yeah, it's maybe something to check out. I just wanted to put it there because he recently passed officially. Maybe something interesting to revisit. If we can also move on from this. There is one thing that's particularly interesting to me. Well, I can also bring it up.
Sorry.
So
can you repeat that? I got a little.
Yeah. No, there's nothing much more to say about it because also I don't remember everything he said, even though I watched his interviews. I know Carrie Cassidy interviewed him and different people. This one is just a documentary from Badlands. This is more like a, how should I say? It's always for me problematic if you're. Is this literally was this like an ad by Trump Jr. or was it somebody else?
Who knows if it's real?
Okay.
Shields are down. What happens when I have my shields up? Is that what's going on? Does the shields work now? Oh, for some reason, Rumble shields were down for me. That might be why. So if you have your Brave shields up, it should cut out those commercials, and then you can use Rumble like a champ. Okay.
So this is just a documentation. It's always, for me, problematic if in some way, shape, or form you are engaging in any type of idol worship and therefore may be prone to support a particular mainstream ideological idea or party. However, what it's good at is then, of course, pointing out the potential issues with the other side. Doesn't mean that your side is perfect and not also up to all kinds of strange things. And ultimately, one body, two hands, one bird, two wings is my view of all of this. Right. But anyone who wants to see like a, how should I say, pro-Trump, anti-recent democratic craziness documentary, they can check out Time of Deceit.
Interesting. A little follow and a like there, and then we'll go to the Hidden Kings exposing the Kennedy assassination hoax, right? Because all the papers came out allegedly.
So this is something I'm really interested in. I watched the whole series. This is the channel by Tommy Rogers, who's been a viewer of, I think, also our shows. He has a very small channel, but he's just re-uploading some very, very, very interesting videos, let's just say. This is, I believe, a 5-part video. This is originally by Miles Mathis, and here it's read by Redline Aviator, a series of articles investigating the JFK assassination. And why I would give credence to this idea, number one, of course, there's all kinds of evidence here, looking at the photos, looking what happened with the body. Does it look similar? What happened with the motorcade? Is it realistic that this would happen? Kind of reminds me of when, as you like to play along, let's say, Trump got shot in the ear a year ago or whatever.
What an amazing miracle.
Exactly. And here the question is, what is the amazing miracle of JFK and his security detail completely fudging up and any of this really happening? And why I find this so interesting is because now, of course, they claim the documents were released. So one channel I had been watching for some time was Dark Journalist. Maybe you're familiar. I brought him up before, where you say the guy who looks like a Fed, right? Loves to talk about Helena Blavatsky and UFO things.
I think he wants to look like a Fed. He seems like a decent enough guy. What do I know? You know?
Well, my only issue here is, and I would love to know if anyone has been watching him and knows more about his content, because I haven't watched him the past few years, only before that. Did he ever, because he talked about the JFK assassination thing a lot, like a lot. And I want to know, was there one singular time when he brought up the potentiality of the whole thing being a hoax? Unfortunately, my spider senses tells me he didn't. However, at the same time, I cannot possibly imagine that he was never informed about this information. I mean, here you can literally see it. It's a small channel, but still, we have like 100 views on this or something. But really, anyone who's into this topic, really check it out, because this would, again, also give credence to what I showed from David Ewing Jr. later. Basically, all kinds of other power groups in the back end actually running the country, and that this may only have been maybe the most recent obfuscation, let's say, of the real government or people that truly hold any power by simply staging this event and then having people for decades and decades fight over, oh, was it, what's his name, Lee Harvey Oswald, I want to say? Was it the lone gunman, or was it the big CIA conspiracy, or whatever else? Was it the Freemason, whatever? What about all the symbolism here and there? People fight over it. Trump can campaign for 8 years on releasing it or not releasing it, and now it's too redacted. People want to know the whole document, this and that. But is it really completely beyond reason to consider the idea that maybe even all of these documents, how should I say, are manufactured in a certain way to ensure that for decades people will fight over this and try to consider who may have really killed it, who was against him and all of that, when the actual truth may be that what really happened was completely different, insofar as JFK himself maybe wasn't even on that motorcade, the bodies don't match up, all kinds of other red flags. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, if I have a big channel like Dark Journalist, I'm going on this for years, how can I not put this idea somewhere on my front page as well, at least as a consideration? You see what I'm saying?
For sure.
So I think this is really a great series.
Shady, yeah. Hidden Kings, obviously it sounds pretty shady. Yeah, Hidden Kings exposing the Kennedy assassination hoax seems like something worth watching. Amazing how few people have seen Tommy Rogers' new video, but that's probably because his channel was taken down and replaced, right? So
no, this is not his original videos, but he's just uploading some interesting things, and only through a brief comment exchange, actually on one of David's videos, I was like, oh, cool, David is just talking about, you know, who is really the hidden hand. And this kind of relates to these uploads. And yeah, Tommy just confirmed and said he's been onto this topic for many decades. So yeah, definitely anybody who really wants to get a truly alternative perspective on the JFK story, check out these videos. I think there's like 5 or 6 parts. They're all on his channel. I listened to all of it, and yeah, definitely worth it. Rather than listening for 20 more hours, people debating if it was this or that power group that killed him. Let's first consider whether the story that everyone agrees upon, that he was killed, truly is completely accurate. And it's just so incredible to me how people with any topic can be held within these false dichotomies. You can have people arguing for days and years, and you have whole political campaigns running on it, but the actual truth is not being mentioned. And again, you have the left wing and the right wing apparently working together in that way. Because I haven't heard Trump mention that idea that, maybe there's something else going on. Yeah.
No, far from it. Miles Mathis, though, is the most inspiring federal agent.
Yes, these are just some additional articles we don't need to get deeply into that relate to Miles Mathis. So the guy who wrote these articles about the JFK assassination, potentially hoax. And what also makes me wonder about this even more, I'm not sure how new this is, but now anytime you watch a JFK video on YouTube, they literally put a blip there, just like they did with climate change and, what is COVID-19 and what is New World Order. Now I said all of the things. YouTube, please just expand the section, because for our shows, one blip is not enough. And how can you only choose one? We would have to have at least 5, 6, or 10 below the videos that we do, yeah? So please expand that section so people know where to go.
People?
Who is lizard people? Come again, Andreas. Well, anyways, here, this is an article about Miles Mathis, I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
So then writings of Miles Mathis also are available.
This is just for reference. If people want to dive deeper, I still have to check this out. But if he's made these long articles about the JFK assassination questions, probably more of his things are worth taking a look at, and I'll have to do that at some point.
And then here's
this is an old video just about the idea of Trump, Musk, and Zuckerberg putting up the USA as the new Rome. We had this whole biblical thing. Well, we even had Abramovich there for a second, I think.
That,
yeah.
Probably.
So yeah, I've pointed this guy out before, and yeah, even he's talking about the whole Moshiach idea. He's even showing the same video that we put in the last video of David as well, where you have all these rabbis going on about, oh, we have to bring about the time for the Moshiach and all of that. Yeah. Whatever these guys.
I like it when Zuckerberg wears like $500 t-shirts that are written in Gothic font. I'm a fan of this. I think we need more of this Zuckerberg. I don't mind. If we're gonna live in this paradigm, in this particular psyop, at least it's funnier this way. For now. Okay, and then here's the Jewish heritage. Trump's Jewish heritage. Well, I guess he has a redhead mom. Anything's possible.
Yes, so also something to look into. I'm not sure if I watched this particular video yet, but I think officially Trump only converted recently. And even here, I'm not necessarily believing that any of, what is a religion?
Converted to Judaism? I don't think he converted to Judaism. His daughter did, though. Did he? What? Trump
I think I had heard that.
I don't think so. What? Is this real? Huh? I don't know about that. You know any idea how hard that is? You have to like cut off part of your. I don't know. Maybe. I'm not sure he did this though. I'm pretty sure he. I'd like to see what. I think he knows a lot about Judaism. His daughter.
Yeah, that's the better thing.
Married to a Jewish
well, maybe you cannot so easily convert to Judaism. Can you convert to Zionism?
Yeah, everybody's a Zionist.
At least publicly.
Everybody in the Christian right, they're all Christians that are Zionists. That's totally different. Being a Jew is a little bit more hard work. I'm just saying. There's like 613 laws you can't follow. Maybe, he's supporting the Jews. He's respecting the Jews. He's friends with the Jews. His daughter's become a Jew, but I don't think he himself.
He gets golden coins made with Cyrus on the one side and his face on the other side from 2017. So yeah, I'm not even saying that
officially converted to Judaism. Let's see what Grok has to say. No. Yeah, I don't think he's formally converted to Judaism. His daughter converted to Judaism before marrying Jared Kushner. So he has very close ties to the Jewish people and their faith, and he's always worked in New York City, so he's going to know tons of Jewish people. And I'm sure he understands them on a level that most people would not. But I don't think that's the same thing as saying he became a Jew. It's like kind of like how I have Freemasons on my show sometimes, but I just like won't join. You know, I'm no joiner. I don't know. It seems like it's like that. Could be wrong. Okay. Jewish heritage. Now we're on to Acts on Faith.
We're almost through.
This is pretty good. Pretty good job today, Raph. I'm pretty impressed. Let me see here. Did we do the right thing with this in the Jewish Quran video? I'll make sure that's open. Okay, so first thing we'll do is we'll go to an Xirtus Amoeba clip. And Xirtus Amoeba, remind me, right after this, I'm going to put into the description on my video from now on the link to Xirtus Amoeba.
Yeah, on this one, it's already there. So if you just, everyone scroll down on all of the channels that Andreas has, then there's the Xirtus Amoeba channel. So yeah, I just wanted to point this out because he's always doing great videos. Everyone kindly go subscribe to him so he can at least monetize the channel or whatever is something to do with it. Also, he's got a channel on X, which is great for me because I'm not really using X, but now I can always just go on his channel and repost any of the shows and clips that he makes of our shows. So that's amazing. Oh yeah, that's
Jack
good.
says, except I'm not a genocidal mass murderer, Andreas Xirtus. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate you noticing that. That's very
Yes,
sweet.
that's really kind.
Dude, and Xirtus Amoeba is here with us now. Doesn't it feel like the Holy Spirit's in the room? I love you. I love that you're here. I love what you do. You're a great man. We're going to have you back on the show. We're going to do another NEUROPA with you. Just you, me, and Raph. That's going to be great. So should I show a part of this clip here? Because like, here, let's put a little...
this was just as an entry to the section.
I was not born this way.
Yeah, so this is the one that we did earlier with Keith, which is pretty cool. It's about a 15-minute clip right here, worth checking out. You know what? I'm back to wearing good shirts. Am I right? Look at this. You know what I mean?
Nice.
Yeah. See? Yeah. Cool. All right. And then so now we're going to pull up some of those other subjects, starting with the Wikipedia page for Konstantin Buteyko.
Yeah, so this is interesting. I put down some notes so I remember correctly. A friend recently attended a seminar, and of course, this is no, medical information or whatever whatsoever. I'm just recounting what this Buteyko guy did. He apparently was in Russia as a doctor. Then he made too many waves. He got kind of kicked out from there, and he opened his own hospital. I want to say in Novosibirsk, but I'm not exactly sure. I have to verify that again. But what he did there, he was basically treating individuals with breath. And there were 3 principles that he was promoting. So the one thing is a breath diet, which means not having too much of a breath intake. So while, of course, there's many exercises about breathing, I'm thinking of this fire breath and so on, where you really go high up on that. His view apparently was, maybe this is also something to alternate, but anyway, something to consider, not to have too high of a breath intake, then to always only breathe through the nose. That's something that's shared between many different traditions. And then also to have a pausing of the breath in between. So not after you were breathing in, but basically breathing in, then breathing out. And after that is completed, having a break between your breath out and then the next time you breathe in. And according to him, if you're able to do that for like 60 seconds after having your breath expunged or expounded or whatever, 60-second break until you breathe in again, then you're in the state of supreme health. And if you're able to do it for 90 seconds, you're basically approaching immortality, according to that particular system. And this may somehow relate to some of these monks we know of that are sitting in the cave and all of that, and they certainly know how to breathe. Maybe there's something related there. And apparently, supposedly, he had quite a lot of success and had quite interesting ideas. However, wonder why social insurance or social security, or how do you call it, medical insurance, I wonder if they would pay for a seminar to learn breathing according to Dr. Konstantin Buteyko. I doubt it, but yeah.
I'd ask him about how to become immortal, but he died in 2003 at the age of 80. So, oh well. Apparently not a perfect solution to all your problems. Ooh, God is not great, according to Christopher Hitchens. Man, I wanted to like go hard on Christopher Hitchens yesterday because Kurt was talking all about Christopher Hitchens, and I gotta say, I don't hate him. He's not nearly as bad as, you know, Richard Dawkins or something like that, but he's still kind of annoying, right? And he's from Britain, so you know. Plus, he was a Trotskyist, so that basically makes him a Republican, conservative.
I only know a little bit about one of his relatives, or not relatives, but related individuals, Richard Dawkins, who talked about this, the defective gene and all of that, from my understanding.
Wait, is he related to him, or they're just
No,
allies?
just allies. Just related in ideology, maybe. Here it says new atheism. The only point that I found interesting here, because I just somehow stumbled across him again, was the whole point of, how should I say, the issues with religious fundamentalism, you could say, especially because of the research that you've been doing, that we are doing, all of the information David Ewing Jr. has been sharing, how oftentimes also this fundamentalism gets misinterpreted in a particular way. And almost, it seems to me, and we have had some pointers towards this, that it may even be that in the currently published and popularized variants of both, let's say, mainline Christianity and mainline Islam, it may even be written or constructed in such a fashion, how should I say, to set up the perfect conflict. So in a sense that what on the one hand seems to be the greatest thing and most perfect, in the other side is deemed to be the worst thing ever. And these things kind of crisscrossing over. And I'm really wondering to what extent also this ideological and religious opposition simply was deliberately engineered to keep having perpetual conflicts, to keep open the possibility to brainwash people into a maybe somewhat misunderstood variant of their supposed religion, just so that they can keep fighting each other. Because still to this day, at least according to my very naive understanding, all major world religions and thought processes would actually share the commonality of, kindness, charity, truth, and all of these things.
Except for some of the cool satanic ones. I got a funny one on Christopher Hitchens about Mormonism. So, the Mormons have this thing, you're not supposed to drink coffee, but it's not really that, right? If you read the rule, it's like, don't do tobacco, you shouldn't drink alcohol, and you should avoid coffee and tea is what people think it says, but really it just says avoid hot drinks, right? Avoid hot drinks. What you're thinking to yourself, like, really? Like, I like hot drinks. What's wrong with drinking hot drinks? How did Christopher Hitchens go out again? Christopher Hitchens died of a strange kind of cancer, right? He died of this cancer called esophageal cancer, right? Which is when you get it's a kind of throat cancer. And, it's a horrible way to go out. And, sorry for this atheist dying that way without, becoming a Mormon first. But causes of the squamous cell type include tobacco, alcohol, very hot drinks, or die. I'm just saying, bro, like, if Christopher Hitchens wasn't an atheist, if he was a Mormon, he'd probably still be alive. He died at 62 in Texas, which is not the way most English people want to go out. Just letting you know. So, hey, whatever. Ha 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 ha.
Want to keep their tea.
Rest in peace, you atheist. So then, let's see here. What's this? Block Scripts, Muslim World, King of Pop was about to convert to Islam. That's true. Michael Jackson's been on my mind. Michael Jackson's been on my mind a lot this week. And it's funny because didn't he end up living in some Muslim country for a while?
I didn't follow him that closely back then. I didn't research that yet. I don't know, honestly.
Yeah, see, Michael.
I only know, and we brought this up before, that supposedly Michael Jackson's super fan. Oh, really?
He moved to Bahrain. I remember he dressed up as a woman basically in the airport so that he could get out of the country. Then he went to Bahrain, and it was really from everybody I'd heard. So I remember thinking it was interesting at the court trial because there was two kinds of people that supported Michael Jackson. They don't really care about us. That's the reason they killed him, because he decided he wanted to be kind of a revolutionary and a poet, not just doing commercial music anymore. But and also he'd owned a huge amount of Sony records, and then they had to take him out for that.
Yeah, but just to
But
point out, we've brought this up before, that his super fan is hanging out with one of his children all the time, has a very strange
Prince
face,
Michael, yeah.
and apparently seems to be able to do certain moves that Michael Jackson was able to do. So I'm not sure if it's completely out of the picture. That also here we don't exactly know the whole story of what's really going on.
Yeah, but there's a lot of super fans of Michael Jackson. It could be what it is. I'm just saying that the people who knew him, there was two kinds of people that went to that trial. People that thought that they'd been through the same kind of trauma that Michael Jackson had been through, and then people that their only reason that they could survive Hollywood was because they knew this one guy who was like the innocent guy in all of Hollywood. It's like even if the rest of the world has Weinsteins and all sorts of horrible stuff is happening, at least they could rely that Michael Jackson was this innocent character. And they're just so shocked of all the people that could ever be accused of anything that Michael Jackson would be accused of the things that he clearly was a victim of and not a perpetrator of. But he had to leave the country because of how bad things got, and he went to Bahrain. So I can totally see him getting very interested in Islam. He was a Jehovah's Witness as a kid. He was certainly surrounded in Nation of Islam and NOI people that lived in, African Americans that were part of the Nation of Islam were very prominent at that time. So he definitely would have seen that, and he would have known Farrakhan through living at Trump Tower. So I can totally see that being, that could be a thing, that he was becoming interested in Islam. I don't know too much about how close he got, but I bet you he understood it a lot better than most Americans did, particularly at that time in history. At one point, he explains his emotional, spiritual journey and his pilgrimage to Mecca, Saudi Arabia. We drove from Bahrain to Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, and then took a flight to Mecca. It was the most wonderful feeling. It felt so pure, so special. I knew that was the connection, said Jackson. Yeah. Makil. Yeah, there you go. Here's a picture of him escaping, wearing essentially a traditional woman's veil in Bahrain. So you can think about that, what you want to think about. Okay, and so now we're on to the clip we're going to show, a preview from.
Yeah, here we don't need to show it. This is just more information that David recently brought out. This is related to Pakistan, and how it appears that also here the story is maybe not exactly what most people are familiar with, and that especially in this case, you basically have a good case study for the creation of a modern nation state, where you have very particular individuals going there, becoming the first citizen, becoming the first spokesperson for the country, but their background actually may have been Jewish, interestingly enough. And this then relates back to the whole question of what are the real powers in the background, what are they fighting about? And it really seems to be this basic dichotomy between, as I mentioned earlier, one group that wants to install a new world king, and one group that is actually interested, if you can believe it, in lifting all boats by truly educating people and allowing them access to technology, access to knowledge, access to clothes, access to resources, and all of that. And at least according to David, he says that many of these rabbis, I mean, here you have the anti-Israel rabbi, but also many pro-Zionist rabbis, are basically just recounting whatever, of course, they have been told into the yeshiva. But it doesn't really mean that that's, how should I say, that that's the whole story. So you have, of course, as always, someone in the back, maybe fighting. He's pointing out, actually, even in this video, there's, I believe, Chaim Weizmann is the name. And then you have this Pakistan guy, basically. And it seems that basically the back end elite families are setting up different countries almost like in a board game, to see, oh, who is going to be able to win. You say you want to bring out the Moshiach. Oh, I don't know about that. Look, I'm going to set up this Muslim country over here to counteract your ideas over there. Yeah, things like that. So it's kind of complex, but I think David really does a great job of simplifying it as much as possible so we can get some kind of a grip, potentially, what forces really are acting in the background and why the world stage is such a mess, because it's representing this back-end conflict.
Incredible. Yeah, I mean, you can also think about how many people, Jewish people lived all over the world. And then once Israel happened, they started moving people out of Muslim countries. So countries that used to have hundreds of thousands of Jewish population dropped to like 7, or less. Like basically there'd be no one left in certain countries. So, Zionism does that. Here, let's go to the next page. This is ego.
Yeah, this is just a fun aside. If you want to check out the official Islamic Congregation Association in Austria. But the joke is, at least according to certain political pundits, because they are usually the ones, and now I understand better because they have some ad pretty big on their page about remembering what happened in the Second World War and all of that. And the more we understand through alternative research how closely so-called Jews and Muslims may be related, makes more sense now. Yeah, here you have my favorite individual on the left-hand side, the president of Austria, still is the president. And even here, just because we have the image, in Austria it really works, because you have to imagine on the left-hand side, the president of Austria, he was originally from the Green Party. And in Austria, it's really like a casino, like you can see here. You have the Black and the Red Party. Red Party is a socialist, Black Party is the supposedly People's Party. And of course, as we know, on a regular roulette board, you have one green piece as well, right? And so in Austria, it's the perfect control through all of these different parties. But anyways, according to different political pundits, they say that although this group is often very, I almost want to say liberal and very moderate and all of that, but they also claim that in Austria, maybe 10 or 20% of Muslims actually take any interest in this association, even though they put themselves in the front as the associations for Muslims. But of course, it's an open question how many people truly adhere to their ideology or their decrees in particular. I haven't looked into them deeply enough to say a lot about it. I just wanted to put it there for reference.
And congratulations, Henry, for becoming a YouTube member. Celebration. Good for you, man. That's the way to be. You make sure you check out some of the deleted content. We have some videos up there that are in the members only for a reason, and hit us up. You know what? You're great. You're a great person. Notice how, they look, these are pretty pale looking Muslims. No, it's whatever, but I'm just saying.
Oh, don't mention that.
This guy looks pretty Austrian right there. I like the hat though. The hat's pretty cool.
And they have like this looks like Fez in a new style or something, no?
Yeah, it looks like Kundalini Muslims. You know what I mean? They're hanging out with the Catholic Church, and something's interesting about this. We should go hang out with them sometime, see what they're doing in there. Yeah, these are like the most European looking Muslims I've ever seen, to be honest.
Yeah, but you're right. Honestly, I wasn't expecting these type of images here. You're right. They don't even look Turkish or anything.
Yeah,
okay,
like
so
not a single one. All right.
This is just from my newest favorite Austrian beat producer, because he's always putting together these social interest documentaries and making beats out of them. And here it's interesting because you have this Sheikh Hassan, and he's basically explaining, yes, I'm trying to take care of the young people, have to be careful, they get into trouble, but then only 1 or 2 days they don't come to the mosque and they hear something from some fundamentalist preacher, and then I'm asking them, so what did you hear? Tell me about it. And then the young guy is explaining it, and he says, yeah, look, but don't you know in the Quran it also says this and this. This fundamentalist preacher didn't tell you about it, did he? Yeah. So kind of like this idea of the vying for control, even within these factions, even in Austria today. Some, of course, truly trying to educate and trying to bring forward a peaceful life. Almost, this is what he says himself, competing against more fundamentalist preachers that may, how should I say, be more destabilizing to society at large, and maybe also not even correct in terms of the Quran, although I will not be the arbiter of that at all. But it was just kind of funny. This was already 10, 15 years ago. Basically a moderate, you would say moderate, I'm not sure how to say it properly, a Muslim sheikh or imam or teacher explaining his struggles in educating the Austrian youth and having them not get into trouble and not provoking any potentially dangerous situations. Yes.
Right. Islam means peace, bro. Okay. And then here the Jewish Quran.
Yes, this we already had.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then that's pretty close. We got like only a few more. What, sky and earth right here.
That's pretty much it. I almost don't want to talk about this because it's an endless saga. Maybe we've looked at this map before or shown it before. That's just a great animated website if anyone wants to investigate that map. Quite interesting. Somebody recently brought up the idea that it looks like there's almost no nation states marked down. Well, of course, this raises the question, when were the modern nation states really, dare I say, invented?
This is a really interesting map,
and
too.
when were the borders drawn up? This is the Urbano Monti map. It's a quite popular one, I think.
Hard to spin.
Have you seen it? You've seen it before, no?
Before, yeah. But it's interesting to think about, like, in terms of when it's from, because by 1587 to have such a detailed map of the West Coast, even, which they always would love to argue with you, like what's really going on the West Coast. And I think the answer is pretty simple, that things changed a lot between the gold rush and everything else. So it's not the same West Coast that it used to be. But for the most part, this is a pretty accurate map around the world. Like that's from 1587, before the Columbus maps were well circulated around Europe. I guess cartographers would have known each other, and so it's possible that.
What we're going to do actually now is just stay on this, and we'll close it down here. The other links people can check out on their own time if they want. Yeah, hear more about the whole final experiment, strange things going on. And this is a larger documentary by Spacebusters, who I generally think, especially during the lockdown period in relation to virology, they did really great work. Here, it always gets complicated if you are having any personal relations with people that are big in a certain movement. It may potentially, change your bias or whatever else. It's a big, how should I say, social experiment pretty much in terms of who reacts how to whom, who considers whom to be flipping a position or to be dishonest or not. Yeah, it's a big show. What can I say? The one thing we can show as a last thing is the next video. This was a recent interview and it's time-stamped in the link. So if anyone wants to see it, just click the link below. You can see it here. This is one of the more recent discussions where you have the guy on the top right. This was actually an interesting case, even from when it happened, who had asked the supposed officially pastor of Agape Church, who you see below, who was running this whole final experiment to, in his own words, demolish flat Earth. Which, also makes me wonder, how Christian is that of you? Why do you want to demolish a religion or even not religion, I'm saying religion. Why, as a religious individual, would you go all out to fight against a certain ideology or a certain idea? Because if you consider something to be invalid or insane, do you really need to make it your purpose to attack it in that way if it's completely nonsensical? That's the one thing. But here on this particular video, what you see is on the individual on the top right basically asked Will Duffy and said, well, while you're there in Antarctica, can you please call me at this and that particular time on your video phone or whatever? You show me around so we can have an independent verification that you're actually there at the time where you're saying you're there, because supposedly they were also asked about certain results of sports games and so on to basically like check back, are you really at the same time we are at right now? Can you confirm this just happened? Because what do I know as someone who's not participating? You're getting a few supposed live streams from there. They still didn't upload a real 24-hour full video, always only these time lapses as we've shown, and many, many other issues. But here basically, Steve, I believe his name, is confronting Will again and saying, well, you didn't call. And why did you not call? And what is the issue with it? And instead of giving a proper answer, people can listen into this themselves. I almost don't want to play it. You can basically see Will going completely unhinged, I almost want to say, not answering the question, but instead asking questions on his own and attacking the individuals present there. So yeah, you guys tell me if you think that is a good pastor that you want to learn from and trust, or if there's not something more strange and shady going on.
Totally believable stuff from a guy named
for sure.
Duffy. Definitely trust a guy named Duffy. Okay. I mean, the military to millionaire thing was the one that really set my spider sense tingling. But in general, I feel like I'm more worried about people like this than ever before. People that really are trying to not only say that they've finished the argument, but they're picking people to argue with that are not the representatives of Flat Earth or something like that. So these are just random YouTubers, and the people that they've invited aren't like the ones who have been the most pressing with information. There's some pretty important flat earthers that weren't included in the TFE, the final experiment. So I feel like it was a very purposeful demolishing of their character, not of the flat earth argument at all. They're just designed to mock certain kinds of YouTubers. And that's not exactly what we needed. What we needed was a proof. Now, we talked a bit about that Professor Dave debacle, this friggin' guy, this like evil man. I mean, just what an
It's
embarrassment.
probably still his most popular video. Just go on popular.
Really?
I'm sure it will. I'm
Really?
sure it will pop up. These are always
That's
the most popular.
embarrassing.
Look,
right?
it's the fourth video.
Wow, dude. Okay, so he I mean, most of his clout is based around trying to say that they debunked flat Earth, but he didn't. Which is the most recent, isn't it? One that just came out. He just did one about the final experiment, right? Here it is. 2 months ago, he did this final experiment video, and it's just, if you want to see how little they understand flat Earth as an argument, then just watch this guy embarrass himself. It's really sad. It's so pathetically sad. I mean, clearly he's like drinking a lot too. Like, look how big he's getting. I mean, it's whatever. It's whatever. I don't want to like demolish his character just because he's demolishing everybody else's character. But he clearly doesn't understand what the arguments are, which is crazy because he made like an hour and 18-minute video acting like he's going to answer any of the questions that people have. Just do a conversation with Dubé that's more legitimate or something. I don't know. It's kind of pathetic. And then his thing is to really champion Duffy as somebody who's brought some sort of resolution to this argument. Yeah, it's just kind of scummy, you know. It's kind of sad. Okay,
You said it. Yeah,
then
and
there's
this is
Jim
just
Ennis.
a random small channel that I found somewhere.
We
You
like
know,
to
not
support you.
saying
Look at that.
these are the best or the most accurate, but here I actually have someone going, I think, with P900 and P1000s, although I heard they also have issues as cameras and so on, but just making pictures of, I guess, whatever things we can see in the sky. Maybe something to look at.
Yeah.
Because as we know, even all the NASA images are officially CGI composite images.
And all of your
what?
Samsung photos, Samsung using special AI training so that when you take a picture of the moon, then what it does is it replaces the moon in your picture with a picture of the moon based on AI training. So you take this picture with your phone, it looks all blurry. You don't want that, right? So Samsung replaces it with a picture of the moon. So you get these really nice pictures of the moon that aren't the pictures of the moon that you took. That's what's going on with a lot of people's pictures. Like, I know what the moon looks like, but literally they're making it impossible for you to take a photo of the moon. Because if you try, they'll just replace the moon with another picture. Literally, they'll just take that part of your picture and replace it. And then boom, blurry, and then AI fixed. So yeah, check that out. Look into this. It's pretty crazy. Samsung caught faking Zoom photos.
Right. So nobody can see. There's nothing to see here, or they're hiding anything. They're just showing you what you're supposed to see, as in all the media.
Isn't that great? Well, that's most of the subjects, everybody. I hope you liked our show. You should go to commency.at and you can click on the Black Sapphire Casino list and then you can go through the links yourself. Check them out. See what you think of them. Make your own decisions. You know, we're just doing our best here.
Yes. Thank you all very, very much for joining today. Channel support Xirtus, everything is here. Thank you all for watching, and hopefully you enjoy, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you so much,
Stop and
Andreas.
smell the roses. Thank you, Raph.
Yeah, touch grass, as they like to say.
Touch grass. And hey, Eugenie, I'm glad you were here. Good to see you, bro.